You're playing.
Okay. You want to move down a little bit? Time. Two minutes. 2 minutes. Evening. We have introduction. Your family was got together to find out where should we do the Shloshim for my father. Right away, assume we all agreed that a place to do it. We hung out over years, or all the years was over here in 770, the June. In the middle of the Tafshin, my father was here all the time, so I figured the place that we have to do it is over here in 770, upstairs, close to his locker. The connection to the room, the locker. We're diving over here every day. My father's very market at Meyer, which was always over here, for all those years. But this is the room we decided to make that as a thought beginning on the Parsha. So the secret that ever when we're talking about the God and Reuben, why the Aver Yarden. The other says that one of the reasons you bring down the quotas, the reason why they had to make it out and have so much animal blood is because they didn't eat their animals, but they really loved the mother. But since the mother was not much, so they didn't want to eat they only had to eat the lechem in the shemayim. That's why they didn't eat the meat, therefore they had to make it out. Ever continues in explaining over there that the different lechem and shemayim represent that it had all different kinds. At times the taste tasted different. They had all different types, which are very real things. Think of it in. He goes to say, and that's the reason why they wanted to also be an Aver Yarden, but they didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. They would have to work the field, till the field, right? Then have to plant. They wanted to stay like really the Morocco. They wanted to stay in the Midbar. They wanted to stay where they could be shepherds. To be a shepherd is very exciting. They won't be distracted from the day-to-day living. They were able to dedicate themselves to our Kodesh Baruch Hu deserving. I think that really represents what my father was. His job that he did was, you don't want to get involved in the business world, you don't want to get involved outside of 770. His job was like he wanted to be in 770, around the Rebbe, dedicated his life for over those 40 years that he was of being here and not having to do with what we say is the gashmias and not having to do with the work, just like we had of God. And that's my introduction. I'd ask Rabbi Zellerson to take place with our mouth a few words.
Shabbos before this week, ready to the others. The information people put on the Sinai and started Yeshua, Canaan, and the Rebbe and the Sinai and Pastor Nosson talking about the road explains the Buddha of the Kindness, which is the handshake between Yeshua and Canaan. Now it says that the Logos, the Ingel of the says in the Sinai. Shloshim is that by Meyer we find the meaning of people, the Anash.org and here. They were the meaning of people from the Moshe Nafti there on the meaning of the likewise, when we give to Yeshua, we find that the Yom Techoel. The meaning of Yeshua was that he was always connected to Meyer, and the Lord of the Rebbe, that he gave Yeshua, Kama Meyer, But the Rebbe remind us to the union of Limud HaTorah. And this is what is mentioned in the Yom Yeshua, that even after we have the union of Limud, the Limud was in the way of the Yom Yeshua, that he didn't have any ugly done. Holding and was the union of Eyal. And not the Eyal of Don Din Mamitari, Din Ernest Mamitari, but the union of Eyal, the union of Eyal, the union of the Yom. So if you think about that there, you see it, this is a word which is everybody's lips. So Yom Yeshua mentioned also here that this was the Daladamas. I'm not saying to say her that there's every tefillah, it was by the Rebbe. Once the Meyer that he came in for a Fabrengen, he think there's a Fabrengen, but they know the Meyer there's no Fabrengen, he came back to camp, he found out there's a Fabrengen. He said, I'm not going to snappish, because I have the Fabrengen. He wanted to be part of it. It's interesting, another thing that we find out there was that he wrote Yumani. He wrote Yumani, he wrote Amhoges, he wrote Stipurim, Teichos from Fabrengens, and it reminds us of the Rebbe mentions in the Sifra of the year about Tumas Adeshem. So the Rebbe says that Tumas Adeshem was writing and talking on this matter. Rebbe mentions it with Rabbi Yudah, what he's in talking of date. He says, like a Chassid, he writes his Anhoget, and therefore he does not write timing for Anhoget. The Rebbe says this is the name for itself. Who can make pain, he doesn't make a difference between big things, major things, or smaller things. The image can be done in Pshutim. He wrote it, and he wrote it with Nachas Adil. The Rebbe said the word in the beginning Rebbe, that was supposed to be Kawasifo, so it has to be the deal for all the products. The time, the place, because this is Nigeria to the Igorita. And as he writes it, he's not done it, I did not write in the Sefer Isser the head of Redality, but I wrote it all as Kimesha Omar, as his Rebbe said, or he saw. Whenever I wrote Kosar, the Khulani, Monsosi, I wrote it after either I wrote myself by doing it, in other words, that in order that others should be able to learn a lesson from it. By the Meyer, we saw that the Rumani that was gathered the last years, unfortunately, the Yonim of Chayyim and Nefesh, the Yonim of different years, different Fabrengans, the Yonim. And after they found that there was once that the Rebbe asked one of the Maskirim that they should ask Meyer, when you get a certain day, if he went to the AL to check to see what he wrote by him, if he recorded it, they went to the AL or not. That is the Rebbe mentioned that the race of ideas and the seals also the Kunshah mentioned everything that's taking place here. So the Rebbe said that they've been running. There are the Meyer there are by the suit upstairs, there's only Shtiber there. Should not be open. In Meyer, he was the union of the Delish and Musha Geshem in the Buddha. He was there to the Shodas Bakedesh in many different ways. It was in everything that whatever there was a need to do, he did in there. He was the idea to reading the Sabbath, the Fabrengens, preparing the wine, preparing the fingers, which is Hakodesh Hatei, all the Bachadim, all the light, who possibly lived on that Zaynus a few hours, make Yiddish, we made the difference, we ate the Zaynus, we made Yiddish from Sudan, and that's how then we went to watch. We ended the day, or if I'm bringing the Kenzai, it's not Shabbos. So the Meyer, this was something, was possibly the house and Bachadim and the light by the Fabrengens. In addition to that, he started to record Fabrengens. He started to walk in the middle of the woods, and he used it over in his interview. And in addition to that, which is something was obvious for all, was that he gave to the rule of an ethnic, that the Rebbe called him in after Chabeis, the second day, second night of Sukkot. The Rebbe told him.
Chabeis.
That he purchased it, that Rebbe told him it was fairly time and energy, and the main level what he did was he stood there for hours. Stood there for hours. And the Rebbe said to someone after that, when somebody made a comment about a certain email, the Rebbe said, the Lord I'm built with Shoel. There were others there before he came to Tzitokos. The Kabbalah seal by him was the Kabbalah seal managed by every member. So even like Halucha, although Father Masada usually there, I think that I did. Halucha is in Halucha. Somebody else managed, whoever managed from Meyer to sell that was placed on revive them. In addition to that, there were many in Yonim, possibly getting Chassidim, especially we mentioned further in the later years after the Timotamos, when he shared many in Yonim with Chassidim. This is the connection also with Pastor Buddy speaks about the Stalkos on a month before Zach received by Meyer that his dinner was Mama's Knisa of the Shloshim, Shloshim of Bimot Thomas. Bimot Thomas. The Inyanim that he shared with us were many Inyanim. He was sitting on Leitna Tachten. He would tell stories which I wrote them down at the Shabbos and the Yom Tov. Shane Inyanim, Pedal became Inyanim. There was one story, an interesting story that we did not mention there, but I was recording once. He was telling the story of the Rebbe once called Rav Shmuel. The Rebbe asked Rav Shmuel to get a certain chassid that he's upset. No, what's by the sleeping in the Fabrik. So Rav Shmuel tried to put in a good word and said this partner is not living for him, and he walks, and he has also other askonis in Yolim to do. One is V'chulu, and V'leila, Kumda is a Manish matter. So he tells, this one tells the Rebbe. The Rebbe says, oh, but for this with Manish. He decided to go for a different angle. So he tells the Rebbe that Shlachim can lead in the Chaychayim. So the Rebbe said, Shlachim can lead in the Chaychayim, and Allah has come and become as Zayin. Zayin, Salkoponim. Yeah, Salkoponim, the Lachluchis that he would share with many people. I personally, I would call them up many times to verify certain Yonim. Not acceptable with the safety Yomah. I attend from the telephone, I attend from. If he had any suffix that something was not, if he wasn't sure about it, he said, "Keep going so." I'm not going to see something without just Mishayah. When I hear the Rebbe always up, one of Acharov, the old Zecher to be Shluchim from the Rebbe, this was a big Nachas by him, he mentioned it, this was a big Achayas. So if we get Achayas, and time a pizza, but I'm going to shake the offer, we hope to say that.
As it's the Shloshim, we're going to do the Siyum, the Kaddish. We assume that everyone who took upon himself to learn the Masechta, they put on the Chazaka that they did, so we could finish.
My father told me an interesting thing from the Rebbe, that all the years when he went to the Rebbe's sukkah, the Nesser made in his room, usually in the morning the Rebbe is always doing. So this, he said there was only one exception those years, touching Chotei, after Baptisti, after the Rebbe was installed, every time when he went into the sukkah, the Rebbe was learning Mishnayos. We're going to do now last Mishnah, Omer Rabbi Yeshua Levi, Altzim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Anku, Chol Tzadik V'Tzadik, Shlosh Meis V'Asor Ilamis. Finished to give each right with Tzadik 310 worlds. Shnemu Hakim Mishnah, Aker Kohanito, Oever Yeshua, Tzidkei Namal, Omer Rabbi Yeshua Polato, V'Matzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'Matzah Baruch Hu, V'So, Elo Sholem. It says, until him, Shinem, Hashem, 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 Yivarach, Hashem, Yivarach,
Hey, Shalom Rav, Mitzvah, B'chaim, Kelim Malin, Mafko Yisrael, B'Yomei. I say Shalom, B'Yomei, B'Yomei, Shalom Malin, Mafko Yisrael, B'Yomei. Yeah, we're going to sit down. Our next speaker has many titles, but tonight's title is going to be a friend of my father. That's it, a chaver for my father, none of the other. And he is a friend of the family. We made a Sheva brachas for, I believe, for every child.
He went up to my father's and I said, I know you're getting back when I got married. You don't have any family in Crown Heights, so Shabbos Shabbat usually family does, but so you made my Sheva brachas and you continue with brothers and sisters.
Okay, so a good friend of my father.
Rabbi Zalman was supposed to say a sikha. So you'll say the sikha. When it was there's a sikha, you have to be a certain age, you guys. The sikha from the Rebbe, Shabbos Pashat Vayetze Tovshim and Gimel. The Rebbe writes, it says as follows. The meaning by Chassidim Givenam is only Shmar design and Shem. Nobody had any term of COVID, Terry COVID. Father Rabba, Chosid Godel Yesef was Zecher of Pochus Terry. While Meyer said that Rebbe said when the gay would have asked, bothered him when he was a kid. He remembers when he was a kid, and when they mentioned the name of the Rabbis, it was from the Gedolim Chassidim. Rav and Alam Godel really was from the Yichidim that Smicha from the Rebbe Marash, a special broker from the Tzemach Tzedek. So they mentioned them without any Torah. People learned Reb David speak. Yom David Hirsch Muvat. You say him to not only David Hirsch, but David Hirsch. So the Rebbe said, yeah, so what's to find a lot of what's the log in the log for this log. Hashem Matzasi, your guy to Matzasi, that the David is in foolish in the Gemara. In the word of the Gemara, the Shabbos Munvov one dollar. Ori Yachid murdered B'Malchus house. Why? Because when he was standing in front of David HaMelech, he called Yoyev the Torah shall covet Adoni Yoyev. And that's why he sent him out to the battlefield, because it was Mikuyev Hekma Chachayim. There says, moving to the Gale Minyanenu. Chassidim is Mitzevis, Kuka Tomet, Leneged Emeim, the Surdosim, Pastor Poma from the Rebbe. Even Shalom Chazal, Shalom Chazal, Shmur, Shalom, your Rabbi, sort of, please, Kibabala Shmur, I'm with the Neged movement. Hashem, the Rossi, Shalom Rebbe, Kuka Tomet, and Zayn Mitzevis, Shtei Tomet, Kuka Tomet, Leneged Emeim, the Surah from the Rebbe. Given that the Rebbe be out my own lifnayim, how could they call somebody with any Torah assume Rebbe over there should be into the Rebbe be out my own lifnayim, or kein reading very much of shame over there. This is what the Rebbe says in the secret. Yeah, everybody knew. I don't know if there's anyone there. How many people came over and said the Rebbe Meyer? He was everybody's friend. Meyer, he likes, I remember in all Torah, early years, he is somebody by Bemuladis, in the free land by Yisrael Meyer, of Mittag by Elachayim, very the Manal, Michol, very the boss driver, Rabbi Drevel. It was never the, if you could say one thing about Meyer, is the Rebbe was with him at every moment. You know, it's not working that Amikos, the Parshas Masri is though the Membez Masoris takes 45 sukkim. Al Kurda that reads in a more than 3 or 4 minutes is considered a kratza. What is it? It's 40 years almost, brought down to 2 words, Vayisu Vayachu. What was Vayisu? Everybody had to pack up their tent. Everybody had to take the frying pan, because everybody had a frying pan. Everybody had to, then, after they had to line up in formation, we each
where each one of the Shloshim went. It was a precise formation. Then they had to take apart the Mishkan, what went on the Agolas, what went by Kosofisov, what they carried, what Lokman gegangen musste gestanden, Moshe B'Yare musste gewenden, Tränen mit Tatzitzes, and Lovim, a ganze Geschäft, all boils down to one word, Vayisu. They came, Vayachnu, they had to unpack, everybody had to understand, a ganze Aveda, one word, Vayachnu. This is the same thing I mentioned left of 120 years. This is the one word by which you remember, the one sentence, the one Meyer is remembered with one word, the Kusha. You want to say another word, Idugigem. You left Rebbe. People don't know you. They think that he never worked. He did a period of a big major period of time that he took care of the office of Gan Yisrael. He took care of the registration. Nobody talks about it. He took care of the registration.
I found files today of registration, mid-60s.
Yeah, I mean, I used to go and visit with him in Dr. Chinitz's office on the.
What reviews from that? Oh my God, it's not PTSD.
Remember, I used to go in to sit with him a lot of times, like, that's where we really became friends, were in those years. I used to go sit with him. He was also involved in hiring the staff. He prepared for Yossi Weinbaum. And this was Gan Yisrael in the early years when he came to camp, and he was in camp. It was White Lake 149, White Lake 339, those that you remember. It was the captain's cabin. When I'm also going to bring you also become that a lot of guys were not there, so they were wearing this cabin. And what became from the Berlin, Meyer saying it was of the Meyer left the Rebbe. That one word, that one sentence, that everybody showed up to the Levaya for, because everybody knew that he and the Rebbe were inseparable. He did, I mean, the whole Zoktaganza Hesed, from all of the, all of the things was in Goli, V'yadu Lakvel, and some of this, looking under the Zachen was in Goli, V'yadu Lakvel. I don't know how many people remember the way he gave out the cups by Kershel Bracha, and when you walk down the steps, it was collected from you that it should be recycled for the next guy.
I was Rabbi Harlig.
I didn't say that you did, but that's what happened. Those that remember, you got the cup from Meyer and you had to give it down at the bottom of the steps. You had to finish drinking, and you had to give it back. It should be recycled for the next guy. Yeah, but the furniture of 770, I mean, all of their prison were held here.
Really?
All of their prison were held in this room right over here in this corner. I was by most of them, but this was Meyer, and the Meretbeg the Yarim Shel Kovin, he was the best friend of everybody that he had a shaykhus to. If you had a shaykhus to him, I remember the nights. I mean, he spoke about. Everybody knows the Rebbe called him in, and there was somebody even that came a few years later and said like. Sepastish, but I was given some note to the person, and the Rebbe said, "Who's on the given the Ali Yorno said Mirogishbar as a full side." Yeah, but nobody. What they don't talk about is that Meyer was up a whole night. The night before, I mean, we used to sit in this sukkah and drink brown oil, and half soda. I mean, we used to sit. He sat a whole night until 4 o'clock in the morning when he went to the mikveh, so that he should be here in time if the Rebbe became early. He didn't sleep. It's a honor to give it to the Lulav and Esri. And it isn't the Rebbe that the Rebbe gave him the prayer to be able to stand so many hours. I mean, if you take it, the Rebbe stood in Tufshin when Aleph, he stood 7 hours. He stood every day. It was, I can't say it's 7 hours, but it was broken up in 3-4 hours here and then another 2 hours. And Shoshana Rabba Maryasha stood for him for the women. It was a different avodah. So if you take the one word that Meyer is, you could talk about Minhogiyach, you could talk about everything, but it boils down one thing. I knew you gave him guides from them. And in fact, it was mentioned, but I can tell you, because I spoke to him many times about it. He had one wish that all his children should be Shloshim. That was the one wish that he had, is that all of his kids should be Shloshim. And he was later that all of his kids were Shloshim. And when they got married, they had a yakas from the Rebbe for their wedding, which I won't go into. But there was a Meyer given Ben bias, he was over on a mission every day. He went to pick up the thermos. He did everything that he could for the Rebbe, and the Rebbe accepted it. So for many people, the Rebbe wouldn't. To be able to be mishamish the way he was, for a few people, and the Rebbe accepted from them. There were many people that wanted to do things, that like there was a lady that wanted, the Rebbe was coughing and she wanted to bring him a cup of tea to the Rebbe, the yeshiva, so she drink the tea. And the Rebbe washed it off. Anyway, Rabbi Zolk and the Shem Martha has, and Einander was so then, for Moses over here. This is Vayitzu, Vayaku, given Zain Vayitzu and Zain Vayaku, given the Rebbe. And that's the one word by which he wants to be remembered by the one word that we can remember by, and push it to the Rebbe. This was his life. On Kintarim shall cover. It wasn't Reb Meyer, it was Meyer, even though he was Reb Meyer, and he came, what people don't realize is that he came to be Geza Hayefes. His name Meyer Yehuda Yisrael Meyer Yehuda was after the leader of the one that was Miyaseh, the Daf Yomi, who was his uncle, and it's great uncle. And Yisrael was after the church. I met somebody, and I'm not going to talk to the conversations I had with Vianney, but we had to do it well with the church. No, but the Vianney Rebbe, who was a Chabura, I knew one of the guys that were in that Chabura that used to contact Harlig, who was the Bal Hashmur on the region in Hagen. And the Yana came to many times to where he grew up in this Yichus, that Adkedei Kaf, his father had a shul, and in the shul in Gedavin, but in the Sultan Misham, the rich people of the Aguda world, and there were big Lubavitches that down there, Rabbi Menfeld used to go there, Rabbi Henneman, Rabbi Liz, Rabbi Shalei Rothstein, all down in Rabbi Harlig. Harlig shul was a Shem Dover, really a Shem Dover, and it came to the Yufruf. He wanted that the Yufruf should be by him in the shul, and when Meyer only wanted the Yufruf to be over here. Anyway, the Rebbe got involved. It came to the Rebbe, and they said they should make a Sheva Brachas Shabbos to Shabbos. It's like and Meyer had everything that he had was here, like Fabrengen and this. I remember the Shabbos of the Dufik, I think it was Fabrengen also. And the Rebbe Fabrengen, and everything was here. People were the kids who were on the shape. He was up by Bilam Moses on that top. Baruch Hashem, we can do the alcohol.
Thank you very much.
Good zone. I know it was difficult to come. See if the comments you have to do, continue doing the wonderful work that you do for the Shluchim, for all the colleagues. So, go ahead.
שיהיה רפואה שלמה באופן מיידי.
Amen.
כבוד הרב
In a
משה.
couple of minutes, we're going to be giving out this little mascaras, little shuras for those who stick around to the end. Rabbi Kowalski did all of that.
I'm going to say two short stories. There's a lot to talk about my father. It's not that easy, but I'll just say two short stories. So one year of Shoshana, I must have been about 7, 8 years old. And we're davening downstairs. My father spent the dreamer. I was davening downstairs with Shoshana. And after davening was over, he came upstairs. And, down there is my father's locker. Was down there with wine, cake, cups, and all the other things. and my father goes in front of the locker. And so Shana at night, Meyer downstairs, the film downstairs, the Rebbe already went back up to the room. My father goes in front of the locker and he starts standing right in front of the locker. And I'm 7, 8 years old at the time watching this. He's down Meyer every word very, very slowly, crying. Then he opens up the Tillim. It's not to keep at night with the customs to say the whole Tillim. It's done at night, and I see my father standing there Tillim, crying very, very slowly, saying every word loud and clear, right in front of the rock over there. And after it finished davening, saying Tillim, it took me for a little while. I was a little kid, I was 7, 8 years old, and I turned around to him and I said, "Tom, is everything all right? Is something I'm not aware of? I see the way you're down like this so strongly, you're crying." So he looks at me and he says, "Do you know what I'm sorry to say Yiddish and translating over this in English." He says, "Do you know what I'm davening about?" I said, What's going on?" He says, "I'm davening that one day you and your siblings will go and have this first to all go on shlichus." And that's what I'm davening about. And I was 7, 8 years old at that time. One more short story. So I had a big fuss, and I'm thinking about the story because I'm in the room now and I'm thinking inside basically. As a kid, I grew up in the room over here because every room from I came in was mostly Bachem. I'm 59 years old now. I was a little kid. And my father used to take me to Minch on a regular basis. A lot of my friends went on my trips. We used to ask my father, "What's our trip?" "What do you mean our trip?" 770. We would have a room from I. That's the trip to Talmud. So that's very, very nice. You know? But I'll tell you a very incredible story. When I was 2 years old, and today's actually my grandfather's yard site, which Kabbalah spoke about in Israel. So different times in those years, the Rebbe would call my grandfather to speak to him about a young Rabbanis. So one of these times, when I was 2 years old, the Rebbe called my grandfather to speak about the young Rabbanis. He spoke to him about it, and had whatever the Rebbe spoke to him about. And once it was finished talking, whatever the Rebbe called him about, my grandfather asked the Rebbe, "Could I also request now a bracha for the family?" And the Rebbe said, "Yeah," but that's not what he went into. He wanted to get speak. So then he said he wants to have a bracha for his wife, my grandmother, so just a general bracha from my father and from my mother. And at that time, I was 2 years old. So also for the I spoke Yiddish, I'm translating to English. For my name, I want to bracha for my grandson, Isaac Chassid, Shemaim London, and all the other words my grandfather added. So he looks at my grandfather, he tells in Yiddish, I'm translating to English. I know him. We daven every single day, Mincha Meyer together. So, and I was only 2 years old at the time. Wow. And I used to stand right in front of Aaron Kaddish, and Dad was standing right over here. And I was 2 years old at the time. And so you see from here, when the Rebbe says he knows you, it's not only he knows it, we all know by Chassidim that Mincha Meyer by Rebbe is like a yeshivas for us. So I had this first. I want to thank my father very much for it. Before even I knew how to speak, I was 2 years old, 1 year old. He would bring me here to come into Mincha Meyer. So again, thank you all for coming and watch. One more word, Ms. Glasky, you mentioned everybody about Meyer Shapiro. There was one Farbrengen in Shloshim Zion who ever mentioned a word from the Sefer that the Rebbe got a gift from the Meyer Shapiro at his wedding. As you all know, the Meyer Shapiro wrote the first Ketubah. And after the Rebbe said they brought over from the Meyer Shapiro was put down in the Sefer, he turned around and he said, and there's also right now in the room here by Farbrengen from the craving for Meyer Shapiro, and was referring to my father because he was going in the room there that was great for Meyer Shapiro. Thank you.
Shakoch. Very nice.
The captain, come over here. You gotta come around. Yeah, come around the side.
So may my father the Shema have an Aliyah, and my father be very happy to have Farbrengen in his on 770. So thank you all for coming and continue doing all the good things my father taught everybody to have real discussions to the other. Before we know it, we'll have my father back, Dad will be back. Thank you all for continuing doing the other story work. And thank you very much, Rabbi Kowalski, for helping us all out, Shloshim and everybody else.
Waiting for our account. I heard the story just about Meyer, I guess Meyer Shapiro, but he had a brother who was going to try to print the sefer. I think he ended up in yeshiva from Montreal, because they're trying to raise some funds, and he tells people that he is, who is he? He tells he's the Deja Rebbe. Didn't really impress the people who know who the Deja Rebbe was. Then he tells them that he is the brother from Meyer Shapiro. So they told him they didn't know much who Meyer Shapiro was. Later he tells them they have a mishpucha. This is Lubavitch. And who is it? The Meyer Harlig. Oh, the Meyer Harlig. Then they went and they all of a sudden opened it up and they decided, they're going to. I didn't know that there's a little WhatsApp on my father that's going around this. I post some stuff. Just it even happened today. I posted today. Those who are on the WhatsApp, I found between my father a card. I follow upon him for the Point Kedusha on Rosh Shlita. When the Friedrich ever came, an original card. My father was 4 years old, so I don't think it was for him. Maybe it was for his father. And when I posted it, I got a lot of comments back, thanking me how wonderful, how great it is. Later on, because of my grandfather's yard side, I posted a little later an entrance that my grandfather had.
Everybody broke through the lines of his parts.
Couldn't help it. Later, I posted a card. My grandfather's entrance to the Hanukkah to the Anash for the Lublini Yeshiva. Not one comment about that. So things haven't changed. Okay.
I'd like to introduce a close friend of my father, Rabbi Kaplan. נשכחתי כמייס מלב. דוקטור דן דגימורה, אז מכאן זה הגזירה, אז שהמייס תשוכח מהלב. הגזירה מן השמיים. אז שהמייס תשוכח מהלב. רק בן אדם, das nega la khush shalom. Was ist damit tishon? Warum tishon? Und was für ein die Frage ist immer der aber was du weißt. Jo, zendeke jo, der und der ist. Was der Mensch ist nicht allein. Was ist Attack sehr noch? Einfach dem als gewöhnt sich wer ist der Mensch und was ist tishon? Schaut mir jetzt wegen einem Menschen, was gewinnt als Sender, wie alle. Schaut mir jetzt wegen einem Menschen, was seine Meitin, sein gewinnt Meitin, was in Parlament, ist mit was tegen das der gut. Das Sache ist ein Mensch, ist da kein Schocher. Aber ein Mensch, was seine Meitin, sein gewinnt als Sender, was in den Ruhig tegen. Als ein Mensch ist Bild in nicht schwach. Wir kommen sich zusammen, sind da Akkorre. Als Skole von der Shloshim. Ich glaube, dass mir darf nicht stimmen in der Skole. Ich werde den Kämmer nicht vergessen. Sind Kuh Mashiach, hat mir suchen mehr in Meyer. Der Rebbe da verreingeht, wo ist Meyer? Da Kirno Kadavine Talie. In die Kommen in Amerika, wenn wir eingefahren mit Toshi sein. Das erste Verbringen, was ihr gewinnt, ich will in die Stammesdorschin sein. Und ihr gedenkt, ich habe kein Tape-Recorder in meinem Leben nicht gesehen. Und ich wusste, was das heißt. Und ihr seht, steht der Bocher dort. Und stut sich mit dem Maschinenkeller, geht daher, geht dahin, hat sich verkischen. Geht aber halbe Stunde, dreht weiter, halbe Stunde dreht daher, geht dahin. Aber ich habe mich gefragt, was ist das, wer ist der Mensch? Whether I asked then or later, I don't recall. There is a Bashtuta that I need to bring.
Hat gemacht mit ihm, aber es ist auch alles weg. Und als Meyer ist schmutzig. That was my introduction to Meyer. Und später Jahre in Gan Yisrael, I was the office boy in Gan Yisrael 1 year. So Meyer lived in my office. Was heeft dat? Iedereen heeft een dog, iedereen heeft een dog. Meyer hat alle Tag, gerufen in 770, whoever answered the phone. What's happening? Now, nobody was allowed to make a telephone call out of the camp office. And I kept my mouth shut. Mein Schuss. Meyer made a call. Was tut's up? You can do again the talk, and there's the telephone is to ring over there in the hall. Emmet had the answer. But you give us mail. Was tut's up? Ihr Gedenktag haben mich verfehlt, haben wir verbringen. Sie werden sagen, so Sachen zu den Scheiches. Ihr Gedenk, die ihr Lola, was sie gewinnt. But you know, die was die Yellow given and all the guy in the same as he was saying, basically was his saying. Was er was sich überlegen wollen. Mehr nicht darum gehen. They wanted to know, so what happened? Which did they sing? And what did he talk about? Das. Nicht ich hab verfehlte verbringen. Ich will ein bisschen von Reden machen. He wasn't like he talked. I remember sitting at the table over here with him. I went out to him in a young, I went on the Chassan, he went on the Bokat. I thought we were on the air there, almost on the same page. The Rebbe used to come in, die Tiere gewinnt auf mit seinen Stelltaler. Und dann hat er gesagt, zu gehen, sagt er, wie es ist. I want needle him. Meyer, du sitzt noch von Rebbe. So, ich will nicht, dass er haben mag nicht. Der Rebbe Luther, die sitzt there. Und ich will nicht, dass er haben mag nicht. Nicht feine Sache. Mit der Legen im Kopf, der Rebbe soll nicht damit. Ihr meint, dass die brachte Tate von Stuart, die brachte sagt, lass der Welt rein. If I would have wanted to go and bring the tea one day, for whatever reason, I wouldn't get in there. I certainly wouldn't get in here. Ich bin Klassiker, sagen, damit so Sachen, der Rebbe will nehmen von dem, damit so persönliche Sachen. Problem, das gelungen. Ismailis compellen nicht. Der Wort Harlig. Das heißt, ein Jahrzeit. Der Mensch hat gesagt, bisschen, die schwache Schopano. Und alle Rabbonen in Koran, die sind der größte Rabbonen. Größte Rabbonen. Rabbonen sind die größte Rabbonen in Juh. Der größte von sie alle in der Motra. Aber so gegenseitig in Tere zur Motra, alle gibt es gerne mal Regen. And die gesessen machen, based on place there in. Die ganze Emily und ein Schokolade, was gesagt, und das hat mir Kabel gegeben. I remember talking to your father once, the Mishan. Weiß ich was da. Aber wenn dann haben wir so da Wort Harlig hat gesagt. Mein Meyer, der Rebbe kann sich schreien und das. Ihr versteht das ich denke mit Ziel. Also deine der Rebbe soll nach dem gehen und dann der Herz ist dort nach ihm. Und mehr soll ich sagen, was meinte. Weil die Nahe Jomosh mit der Heil. Damit Ziel sein gewinnt. Nahe Jomosh mit der Heil. Was hat er gemacht, der Elisha? Asher Yotzak Mayim al Yidei Eliyahu. Sagt er, die Gemara ist alle die Gemara. Lomad Leinema, Yotzak, Melamed Shekdela Shimusha Yosem. Das ist gewähnt der Messias sein, der Messias ist gewähnt, was hat doch gekannt, sein Leben Reben und hat es noch fahren. will es kein Pelle nicht, dass immer die jedem den Fuß als er aufstehen. Ich schaue es, was mit früher geredet haben. Ich schaue es alle den guten Menschen in alle Dinge mal vor dem Essen. Das ist kein Pelle nicht. Sie kein Pelle nicht. Aber der Dame ist auf die Tür, Meyer, was auch wenn die Nacht, die erste Nacht, was die denken und alle. Auch wenn eine Nacht, die kommen in der Früh, wenn der Rebbe ist rausgegangen, ist nicht angetroffen von dort, kommt der Rebbe ist gestanden. Hat nicht angetroffen von dort, ich kenne es nicht dort, aber die alle anderen Maschinen. Nicht angetroffen, gestanden, der Rebbe steht, aber der Rebbe steht, wird der nicht stehen. Und sie es kann doch nicht einer sein. Noch ein halber Minute. Sefer Teich. Studien beweist Hashem, der Chatzres, der Kleine Jafriku. Einer, was ist Schol, beweist Hashem. Schossel beweist Hashem. Er ist nach Pflanz, beweist Hashem. Ihr wisst, was ist Schossel. Ihr legt da Sache rein in der Erde und das wird sich. Das ist Schossel. Und da wächst es. Es liegt da und da wächst es. Was ist Bechatzes, der Kleine Jafriku? Als de Schossel beweist Hashem, die kommt in die Chatzes, der Kleine. Aber als einer ist Schossel beweist Hashem, riecht sich nicht beweist Hashem. Ich soll sicher seine Kinder, wenn der Chatzes, der Kleine Jafriku. Und der Pfarrer ist mehr einer von den seltenen Mischprochen in der Welt, was alle Kinder dann überrascht sind. Und mehr zu gegrüßt werden. Der Rabbi gesagt, die all when I schlich is, you think it's my schut? You think it's my schut? It's only because I used to hang out here. Hat sich nicht mal geteilt gewesen, Efscher, als der Bräuche dann von der Passen sich gekommen. Hat sich geteilt gewesen, als oh mein Gott, kussen wir, ja. Wer noch? Eine gezählte Sache eben. Es kann sagen, als eine zweite Mischproche. Alle Kinder, ohne Ausnahme, doch abschlägen. In Meile ist nur von Bestevo. A viel hat der Eltern, a viel hat mehr, es schon genug von Frischerheit. Der Bias Mashiach Tekeno, nur der Sender, Frischerheit und Gesundheit und Begabung.
Amen. Shakwa.
Shikoya, yeah.
Shakwa. Shakwa.
So, I want to talk a little bit about my father, about some of the things that he did around 770. Some things are known to everyone, like the lulav is known. But as I was thinking about it, growing up as a child, some of the other odd, we call them jobs that he would do around 770, all of it was in order to make the life for the Rebbe easier. That was his goal. His goal was to make it easier. They mentioned it. When someone complained why they gave my father the lulav, the response was, where were you when he was concerned about saving me time? Now, why did you speak up at that particular time? So besides we know the lulav, we know that the sukkah, the fact that they built it out of this nice, beautiful sukkah, it was my father, as far as I understood, he was the one that ran around collecting the money, and he built this sukkah, and he even told me they put a carpet, and someone else told him, one of my skiers, that they was not going to walk into where there's the carpet. They never walked in, and they never was happy. But the purpose of that was to make it easier and nicer for the Rebbe. And then he would have the supposed to serve the Rebbe in the sukkah. So he would get the lulav, go out for a few minutes, then we'll tell him to go out on one time they said, Grace Ashura is the help of the Hasidim, go out and do that, and then he would go in to feed them, and he would give the Rebbe the food, and that was the source that he had. Of course, we know, when there was a chayes for the Fabrengen, he would take care of the Gashmias, right? The Gashmias over there to make sure that they had the wine. Those who remember getting Elvis Langer. If you were lucky, he gave you the bottle, so you were able to leave them during the Fabrengen. Right? Remember, those who remember that, you would get the cups and the bottles and the kichla. The fortunate one got the sweet kichla, and the other one got those square without the children. And of course, the kosher bracha, was there and making sure that the cups were there, ordered the wine, ordered the matcha, whatever would give out. He also had the schos to hold the Abdullah candle, right? The Abdullah candle. Someone offered him, I understand, a lot of money wants to give him the schos, and he refused to do that. Now he got it, but he had the schos to hold the Abdullah candle. Never trusted him to cover up the siddur. The Rebbe was very careful about the siddur, but he trusted my father to put the towel on it to take care of the siddur. Another thing that he did was he used to prepare the shalach manis for the Rebbe. Remember, as a kid, we would do it in the locker, get a brown bag, and he would have a bottle of Smirnoff.
And I remember going with him to Raskin's store because he wanted to pick out nice fruit for there.
Correct. I don't know what was it. The fruit was it an apple or an orange? Orange.
I think it was I think the brown bag also came from
the brown bag was an apple. Then there was a hummintas. Us in the Kabbalah houses, we always have to find nice themes with bows, with ribbons, nice stuff like that. Oh, that was simple. There was a bottle of mashka, a Smirnoff, hummintash, and a fruit from house in food store. Yeah, the soft one wasn't the cookies one. I remember it was like the Danish one. I remember that he did. We mentioned it also that he would every day the supposed to go to the house to bring the empty thermos to the Rebbe's house, and then the Rebbe would fill up the new one, heat it up, and bring it out before they had they had the stove over here. So they did it over there. It was after Lamed Ches. Then he would also go get the milk. I think it was from Lipskir's. He would get the milk and a little Danish for the Rebbe. He would go do that. Okay, for them. Another thing that he did, I remember as a kid, for Vav Tishrei, Yud Shvat, and Chafov, they had a special candle. It was a long candle. Probably seen in some pictures. I think he told me it came from Israel. Right, talk about again, but it was the long one. Somehow it was a one long candle. It used to end up in my father's locker. He would go to give Hirsch to get the flour, put it in, and then he would fill it up with salt. And that's what he would do. I remember that was the job that he would do for the candles. When the Rebbe would come back from the oil, before they had a sink over there, the Rebbe used to go over here. The Kford used to sit in the locker over there. He used to hide in the locker. I don't know, not over there. Right? He used to go there to get the leftover water. We would go run after. As soon as the Rebbe passed by, we were hiding in the locker, and we used to go out there to get the extra water that was in the forge. Right? Is that correct? Also, later after Levaya, when they had a cord, my father used to set the cord outside on the step over there. Came out from still out well when they got the other one.
No, because that's what they were stuff over.
Correct. Then they had we know it was Kiddush Levana, and now that started. But in Kiddush Levana, the Rebbe generally he was one of the people that ever would say always say Shalom Aleichem. One time, father missed it. He wasn't there, and then he was waiting. When the Rebbe came out of the room, home to the car. Father said he turned around to him and he told him Shalom Aleichem. Before Lamed Ches, and even after that, he was the one who would move the Rebbe's chair, the table. Who remembers when the Rebbe used to daven over there? Shabbos, Erev Shabbos, right? Shabbos by Mincha. So they had the table over there. Shabbos. Shabbos. Oh, that's before my days. Okay.
I think you davened up last time.
Today, I'm not saying that how many of you know that. I'm not a big mashpia here. First of all, where did the feet ever daven in this room? Anyone know that? Yeah. Very good. That corner over there. Right over there. Good. So that corner over where? Over there. Right over there. No. The corner. The shot down. The feet could have this corner with that corner. I double man around right over there. We did a shot down next to you. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, the Rebbe wouldn't want to daven in the same place as the Rebbe. So Shabbos, And Shabbos by minute, the Rebbe would daven right over there, would stand there, but the table was on the way, so my father remember moving back and forth. That's before my days. And also downstairs, my father was the one who moved until Lamed Ches. He would move the chair, move it back, move it for the Rebbe. You don't know that after dollars, people miss dollars. My father got from Americas, he got from Rona's extra dollars, and he would give it out to whoever came late. As a matter of fact, my brother told me today that a friend of his asked him that he got on his dollar.
Someone just wants on me today that on the dollar it says kilo. They Meyer, McFly conditions are they Meyer Harlig.
And I told you,
And it
because
said it was the day of his mother's yard side, and you wondering what that was.
the copy had X'd up, people came late.
So he used to give out the dollars when he would do it. Also, I would say Beyitin Lecha, by Abdullah, the Rebbe would turn the siddur and he would say it with my father. Another thing that he
push the siddur over.
Yeah, push the siddur over to say Beyitin Lecha with him. A couple of times the Rebbe ran out of change when he was giving it to children. And again, as opposed to my father, the Rebbe accepted it. I mean, my father would give him the change, and later Gona would come to him and say, you know, what was it? My father would say, don't worry about it. No, the Rebbe wanted to give it back to him. So little things that you can see. I'm told one year there was a big ice storm
In front
of what year? Lamed Daled?
Yeah.
And I mean, some people wanted to help the Rebbe. We could say that he held on to my.
A few people stuck out.
What? Yes.
Yeah, and then a few people, for instance, stuck out the hands. Then he saw my father since he took it. My father held on to the pole.
Correct, and he did it then. And of course, we know the Yaman where he would send it out. He takes it, he would send to people. For us today, it's simple, but I see some of the letters from some of the Shloshim, especially Raskin, they say how you Machai amazed him by sending us. Imagine for them to hear a tape from the Rebbe. It was early, sending him out over there, and he would be up at night to making copies of the tape in order to be able to send it out. He sent it to Israel, sent it to England, he sent it to Morocco to make sure that they had. You also know the Rebbe gave him a special kiruv, and and Memches, after my grandfather passed away, he gave him to say my father davened for the Rebbe's minyan. He gave him to say the Kaddish after Kriyas HaTorah. Told him that he could say that Kaddish after Kriyas HaTorah, except the last time when the Kaddish was over. He told him that you could go to say the Kaddish after Kriyas HaTorah for my. No, my father was yeah, when he got the chip, and then he continued. So the Rebbe said that you could continue on saying the Kaddish. So these are the different kerubim. I think it was because of the dedication that my father showed about the Rebbe's Gizun, about the Rebbe's time, and you can see some dollars and people would gather. He would like pull people. We watched some of the videos. Like it was like very concerned about the Rebbe's time. I would say my father was this cautious police. You know, he was like the police of this cautious. Self-important. Like if you would see people late for Fabrengen, like why did you come late for? You got the Fabrengen. And why don't you come? How could you go away, miss a Fabrengen for Shabbos, go to the country, right? They probably know. Like he was like this cautious police. We had someone told us during that ship it inspired me that he was the one that the oil. My father saw him was wearing with our Kurtzedek, Gates and Levin gave him a kapota, right? So he was telling us that he came to the Shiva of Gibel Tammuz. So he told us that my father, he was telling me my father caused me aggravation because he flew in this morning from Florida. He said, my wife took an Uber straight from the airport to the oil. Because the father had to go back to my house to get my kapota, and then I could first go to the oil. When I heard that inspirational story, I took that plot not every time I went to the oil, I would, especially if I come in and out, bring my kapota. So if I saw that is an inspiration. So he was worried about his kashas, people, especially for, we know, of course, you know, Nissen, all of this is because of things that are especially connected to the Rebbe's personal thing. Yudalit Kislev, all of those types of things I'm saying is the kashas, because the kashas was the most important thing. I've asked him, I said, Tom, who inspired you? Like, who fired you up? Like, he comes from Charkiv, Ruzhin. I grew up by my grandfather. I never said it was simple. He just grew with it. That's something that he learned. Also, my father was kind of humble. He didn't like people to know about some of the Kirubim. I posted one of he used to send the Chadoshos, he used to send tapes. We posted some of them online of the stories of what was happening in 770, what was happening around there. And at one particular time, he's describing to one of them all the people who had who got matzah from the Rebbe. And it's just the maskirim. And then he tells, I believe this is, they will ask him, he says, I'm going to tell you one more person who got one, but I don't want you to tell anyone else because I don't want you to be jealous, I don't want people to live. And he says that the Rebbe also gave me. So just a handful, really, a select few people who got matzah. My father was on the list, but he said specifically he doesn't want it to be spread. He doesn't want people to know.
He didn't want to go on COL.
He didn't want it to go on COL.
And
he didn't want to go on Anash.org. He didn't want to go on any of that. Really, because he was humble. He did not like to say a lot of the stuff that he did.
But now we're putting it on.
Now that he's not here, we're gonna say like you every year you were on the list and he got the matzah.
So that's first, I was here in Happy 77. My father came out after Meyer, and he said, just he say it's going to be different. Everyone's going to get people to Torah. So the colonel and younger light should go over and get it. And then there's a list of Rebbe Gate who wrote the name Maskiris on top. Tati was under that list of Maskirim. And then Parakov himself inquired to those people and told them that Rebbe's going to give them matzah. And then when Tati got the matzah, then their name Tati tell me, don't tell anybody. And right after Rebbe's matzah, he didn't want to miss Meyer, go home. So he put the matzah in his kapotis and he could see what his eyes.
So the point of this story is both of them, how the Rebbe looked at him as matzah, giving it to him just with selective matzah. The other side is that he was anonymous. He didn't like people to go around announcing that I was on that list and I received it. And one more interesting story, which I heard during the shiv, and I heard it from two different people, told me this. My father was in charge of the aliyahs. A little different. The early years than the later years, how the system worked. But in the early system changed over the years. But two people told me that. One that was Rabbi Dvorsky and Mendel Lovik. Both came doesn't shiva told us.
That's it.
Mendel Lovik is there. Oh yeah, you're the one who told us the story. Yeah. And he went to my father, and they said he had a baby. He had a child. What day was it?
Aliyah was.
Oh, well, now.
Okay, so this is right here. So you see, this is the real story. So he goes to my father and he said, "What year was it?" 11 years ago. So he goes and he wants to have. He asked for an aliyah. Then aliyah. My father says that it's will take him. Well, let me see what I can do. And then he ends up giving you the aliyah. Chav test. Yeah. Chav test. And he had today Chav test down. Then he ends up giving him the aliyah. Unbeknown to him, that aliyah my father was supposed to take because my grandfather's yard side today. So quietly he gave away his aliyah. So, to be mekusher and to want to have all the shloshim, but then when someone comes along with him and he didn't know about that, they gave away his aliyah. The same thing happened with Rabbi Dvorsky told me with my grandma. Tells us the same thing. This is what happened with my grandmother's yard side of Tavis. So that his aliyah came to me and said, really, there isn't anything. He said, what we can do, and then he ended up giving it away. So you can see the chesed that he wanted to do to share the shloshim that he had. Didn't make an announcement. Okay, I'm going to give you my aliyah. He didn't say that. He said I arranged it, and he went to find in another minion. He found another minion to get the aliyah. I think some of this shloshim are what my father did and why he did that. Thermos, and a couple of times you have to send him shlichus. You can read it in his reports. And the Shura. But the point of all this is that the Rebbe he had the schools to be mishamis b'kodesh with these little odd jobs, with some unknown and some odd known. The Rebbe did not give the schools to everyone. Assuming that's supposed to be to be shluchim from the Rebbe. We hope to continue to give nachas to the Rebbe, giving nachas to Father until we are zoicha to be back with the Rebbe. Go here, Harlig. You got to come here. Yeah, you got to. So there's another friend of my father. One other thing I mentioned, because I know you're involved, is my father also used to collect Meyer. But I remember Maimon al Cheshboni Abrati, it was from the Bocharim. We have the list. I think Arik, this is how you can't turn this one over, no? With Maimon.
He also get the fruit for a shayda.
The Shloshim is to give the, and he always invite you to speak. But again, electing Maimon, not for Jem Maimon al Cheshboni Abrati, again, this is something personally for the Rebbe that he would collect. Yes, we collected it. But Maimon is called Cheshboni Abrati for itself. You okay? Is it working? One more. Is it good? Is it? Because if it's not on the websites, it's the website is not. Is it good? Is it?
Yeah, you can see him. We don't want to see it well enough.
How you in the library? I will not tell stories. I will not tell any of the previous what you mentioned. I have my own little some other comments, and thank God nobody said those comments. Won't be repeated. But basically, the mouth. Our mouth is, of course, the Hayengen, that's what I'm Tasha, the Hayengen of podcast is. The Hayengen, talk to you, not talk to us. And how is talk to the standard? We're going to go start from the day of the passing, everybody might be able to line. But the elder line. So then, you find it. Talk to us in the day of the summer. There are rice in the Hayengen. Avoid the soda of big figures, Hapasidis, Lahagi was asking, here, even at Yoko Age, everybody burned, and Taglish is going on, then you're growing, the Correga, the Cosplay of Cross. There's after moving seals, and growing, and you don't. I remember I saw something which was very striking. Before I mentioned that quite a few other this was invited me to speak. And very often, or most of the time, how did he introduce me? Introduced me that, well, Yeshua. And there was a kind of there was a kind that came from the hospital. And they needed, usually when somebody passes away, they put her on the floor, or the person on the floor, they need straw to put the body on, not on the floor, it's not causing a mess, but on straw. So where do you take straw in the middle of Tishrei and Moshe Shabbat? So somebody, I don't know where it came from, but they said, let's go to where Rasmus started, went to making able to find their straw. Upon it, they found some wood shavings. They brought wood shavings. Wood shavings, melons, fruits are packed from wood shavings. And Meyer is telling the story on this more than once, more than twice, but okay. And they brought the wood shavings, and they bring it in. There it looks, and the Rebbe says, "This is not straw. This is not straw." Everyone's watching the shock, everyone freezes, what do we do? So the Rebbe says, called my father's name and said, "Geht da rein zum Himmel Geschäft, hat sich gerade das im Geschäft, nehmt dem Besen, nehmt dem voneinander, das ist auch nicht gut." And this is a story, actually, since I'm in Harlig for quite some time, and in the chapel, people today, they still don't, they would keep shavings. But by us, we only make sure to have straw, because you couldn't straw during the Levite at the time. And this is a story you always said, and always made me, why do you tell me the story more than once and twice? Then I'd go for everything, I'd go for this, just again, I was supposed to see it, because they have brothers. The Meyer was in our day, he was passed away in our day. As you know, or you shouldn't know, you should never know. there are 40 groups. And so whoever, not always you pass it, wherever you pass, you don't go up. And he passed away, he passed in our day. And so we make sure that we use the right straw, we use everything that's supposed to be done. But the bottom I saw an Indian here in the Gulf. And he gave it to the Meyer. The Meyer, everyone spoke about it. Because the Tashas, the Kushas. I thought to myself, we have to look in the Tashas, the British Mazman, speak us about the first Tagil is Tashas. But it's the British Mazman, left in Mazman. What's the Mazman? They have the Tashas Tashas. Today's Parsha, today's Shloshim Dorim, we're now called Testament. So we're gathered today. Today's Parsha speaks about the Meraglim, that Meyer and the son of the Meraglim. And there were two that came back, that they were totally Tzadikim, Harlig ben Yehuda, and Yeshua ben Nun. But what's so striking is, if you look in the Parshas, in the Pasha, the second pasuk in the Pasha, people. Wondering inside because it's so unbelievable, you think I wrote it. Literally incredible. Second pasuk in Torah is that in Israel Moscow. Remember, the Meyer spoke about the Spanish Christian, spoke about the United spoke about Fancy. The second pasuk, the second Rashi, the outside, which the Meyer will be as popular and remembered in 1,000 years like Rashi, so nobody should worry. The second pasuk starts, and what's the Rashi? The Ramatam, Achad Oser Yoy. You know, Achad Oser. Look at the Rashi, Pastor this punishment. He writes here, I'm going to start right here in the middle. Ubechov test this season. Shovu, as Amaragli, and the Kodesh by name. Today's Kitas is about the Meraglim that went to the Shlichus of Meyer. And who are they? Of the Yifuna from David, Buddha, and Yeshua ben Nun. Now, this is one of the Gematrias you'll never forget. Connected to your Meyer. Harlig ben Yehuda is the Gematria Harlig. He was Shevet Yud, and he was one of the Yudbei Shvatim. He was one of the ones that came back and said, the other one was Yeshua ben Nun. Yeshua ben Nun was the Yamish Mitay Fayel, like it says on the 770. But it's very interesting that Lo Yamish is also the Gematria Yeshua. So Simon, to remember that who was Lo Yamish Mitay Fayel, Lo Yamish is the Gematria Yeshua. When he gave us, I have a time that Yeshua Harlig right here. The sponsor in the Shabbos and the crowd, this is the Pasuk, Oisei Chazak, Among the crowd, that Chazak is the Shetevus. Now you might get Shetevus, Dario Chayot Kayom. It's called on as the Tranzar Chayot Kayom, but he's Yanki Bavinu, very nice. Yanki Bavinu, the Yuaki. Thank you, now we're just come through. The third Kudah we spoke about, the third day is central day in their Meyer's life is Paul Test Season. What's this called Test Season? Which he made the announcement, everyone knows, the Meyer made the announcement of the time of Paul Test Season. So you talk when the Rebbe become and the Rebbe and Baruch, you know, Ish the last full day of Meyer's life on this world was Paul Test Season. Shabbos was the name of that Pasha, Shlach. Shlach. The last Pasha, the last Shabbos, the last day was Paul Test Season. What was Meyer's capital on that day? And now pay time, correct? basic, which you remember, Chavkas is an Isha basic. And if you add his years on this world, 87 together, 86, but his Chavkas was paid by him, right? So pay side, you can't do that too. So each your basic plus 87 is the Yamatim, Meyer, Yehuda, Yisrael.
We have the fact checkers here.
One of the fact checkers are Yerushalayim. Just one more, because I'll just finish with another thought. We spoke about the Sukkah, we spoke about the Lulav and Sukkah, and the discussions of Meyer about it. Again, getting Chumash. But the drama, you know, my games. Meyer's yahrzeit was on Sunday when we learned Hilchos Sukkah. His Levaya was when we learned Hilchos Lulav. I took me to learn my Yom and someone said if you stand in Zek Show to learn Niglan, and Shal me down the Ganser. Meyer stood with her after 6+ hours in the holding a Lulav. I mean, that itself is, if we didn't do anything else, beyond incredible. Meyer, the phenomenon dein Seide, dein Götter, das ist die erste Bühne da vergehen. Steht da from the first line, the second line, under Masada, that Meyasa da vergehen. Look myself, just reminded me today, also from the Rambam of today. The Rambam from today speaks about the first page of Satan. You take a look in, if you look in Hayom Yom, on what day does it ever bring down? I'm not going to say that. Daf Vayayim, Zayin Iyah. Zayin Iyah, and that was Yosef. Dr. Dov is asking Yosef. Daf Vayayim. Wenn ich ja, wir kennen das mit Asche, sei Mamisch mit Rebbein. Die Vater sagen noch, und sie steht auf dem Erzähler, eigentlich ist, weil noch, der was the Meyasa given the Daf Vayayim. Und der Rebbe bringt auf, es sagt das, ich darf Vayayim. Richtig? Und jetzt geht man, was ist Vayayim, here is 86. Vayayim is 86. Meyer passed away, he was 86, but he was staff Vayayim. Darf Vayayim. So I feel the young seine verbinden mit Darf Vayayim. Aber von ihm mit der Meyer, du sollst gelernt, was ist Kaschus, was ist Akosi. Oh, noch eine gute, noch ein Gehirn, I'm glad you're here. The Meister Shalaya, this is the Yotzerik, that's the Yotzerik. This is Shabbos Mevorchim, Tishrei Tavshin, Samach. Shabbos Mevorchim, I used to try to say Philip throughout this room, and I didn't always finish with the minion, usually not. Then the mayor is looking for a chazan. Look for a chazan for Shachim. I'm standing and trying to finish on time, and he says, Shachis. I show him what I'm doing, but not going to finish. So, Mitzvot by night. And I wasn't sure I heard right, and I try not to speak or ask questions in the other's room as much as I can, have to not speak, only feel it, right? And then I walk away and is Shloshim. What's he talking about? Meanwhile, the biggest feeling and Lubavitch got in the Shloshim there. And what is going on? I don't know. So I called him up on Sunday. He said, hey, what happened? I couldn't talk. I didn't want to talk. They thought by now. So yeah, this year we have you won't be able to be here. So it's up and so I asked him, so you're offering me to them so by not like the other room? I said, yeah. Okay, I'll think about it. I didn't have to think, I already decided on the spot. And I come to the Rebbe's room by the Meyer. I come to the Rebbe's room. I have to ask, look for Meyer, right? The guy, he's not in town, he's not there. I said, oh boy, he really fixed me up. He gave me a Rebbe's room, he's not there. Where is Meyer? So they told me, you have to go to a house of Riz by English. House by Riz by English in Florida. I said, oh, no, California was, okay. I said, hope somebody knows that he's not supposed to be by the own. We bought Hashem, he did tell him that because I'm paying castle on my later that I'm penciled in. And the rest is history. But I want to bring out, speak about Meyer, that in 1 year, I don't remember how many years ago it was, he says to me, Eric, you have to daven first, second, the Simchas Torah Meyer, you have to daven. That's why you have to daven Simchas Torah Meyer. We usually look, they says, don't you know what it says in the again? That the Hamshachas, all this, everything you daven for, and the first night Rosh Hashanah, your mom should the Shmini Atzeres, your Simcha. So since you opened the season, those are the words he used. Since you opened the season, it would be the right thing to do that you should have in Simchas Torah. And I accepted the offer, and I was very amazed by his. He came up with this brilliant way to ask me to daven. But I did that. That's a story. Fact. That's not the Meyer left the Yayin. If you go down, things are nice now. With his around the Sheikh Yopa. When he's good, how the whole down and go back to the Rabbi Matu from the Matmas talking. The Hui Domainu. Und die ganze Mischwoche, wir haben manche gesunde Jahre mit der Sonne, schon in Teves, Schia, Mensch, der Teves. Okay, danke.
Grüß dich, Shikoyach.
So, sitting in this room, myself, my siblings, this was a room, this cheder, we had a source of davening with the Rebbe many, many times. Today, people realize the tremendous source, and it's interesting to think about how my father lived his life. And we all made the Shloshim in our communities last night. And I was thinking about what stories I just share about my father's life. And part of me was thinking, there isn't really a wow story that I could tell people in our community, or even here tonight that I can tell you, that's really people are going to be blown away in a way that you think. It's a story that, no one ever heard of. But really, when you see the amazing thing that my father, how he lived his life, was every single day was a special day, and every single day he understood the schus and the great moment you could have davening with the Rebbe, Mincha, Meyer. Gotta change the battery. What? Davening with the Rebbe, Mincha, and Meyer, and being in the Daladamas of the Rebbe. Today, people say they would trade everything in to daven with the Rebbe, to be with the Rebbe, Mincha, Meyer, to be by the Rebbe, Fafabrengen. Like my brothers mentioned, we always wondered, why was it in the Chofs and in the Lamids and in the men's? People could say, well, maybe people had other things to do. My father maybe was able to afford himself to do these things. But believe me, there were a lot of people standing Kingston Avenue, and they were standing around that they had the opportunity. They didn't take advantage of it. So even though you may say, well, there's not one big story that you could say, but I think the biggest story of my father is how he lived every single day of his life. Every single day of his life, he lived with the Rebbe. It wasn't like he had an inspirational Fabrengen and then he started to come around for a few days. It wasn't like he had periods in his life, like we all do. We have periods in our life. I guess his battery's not so great. I guess he had periods in his life that, we go in and out of things. But for my father, every single day of his life was living with the Rebbe. What I want to talk about now is not the part of his life that you all know about. It's another part of his life. It's the part of his life that was at 442 Crown Street. Was in his home. I know my father says a lot of times he doesn't understand the source. All of his kids went on shlichus. But there's another part of my father's life that some of you know, maybe not all of you know, is his tremendous love and dedication and selflessness to his family, to his kids, and to his Einar. So my father, his dedication to the Rebbe was obviously number one, and his dedication to his children were selfless on a daily basis. We had the trust that my father brought us along, and a lot of times look at pictures and we're sitting there by the Fabrengens. And a lot of times I think if it was me and I want to go to Fabrengen, I wouldn't be schlepping my kids along. It comes with a lot of, taking care of your kids comes with a lot of challenges. And my father was so dedicated being with the Rebbe. If you look at the pictures, you look at the pictures of Fabrengen, we're sitting there. My father has such a love for us and wanting us to experience to be next to the Rebbe whenever we can. So I had this course that of Shabbos, I would come here and be in front of 770, and we used to wait to get tzedakah from the Rebbe. So one time the Rebbe came and he gave tzedakah to all the kids. By the time he came to me, the Rebbe ran out of change. My father wasn't standing there, didn't give him the change. The Rebbe ran out of change. I was like 10, 11 years old. So I figured that, I got so many times the coins from the Rebbe. This time I won't get. So I walk out, I'm standing in front of 770, and still remember like today. I was going down the steps in front of 770, someone taps my shoulder, the Rebbe's looking for you. So I run back in here. What happened? The Rebbe went back into his room, got changed, saw my father in the Gedei Talk and said, I think it's your son that didn't get tzedakah. So I'm gonna, where's your son? I want to give him tzedakah, and he gave me a coin. So for us as his children, we always felt, all his children and his grandchildren, this tremendous dedication that he had to us and how much he cared about each one of us. And his wanting to us to go on shlichus was because he knew the great zchus we had, and he wanted his children to experience that zchus and to be there. And that's why when we went to go on shlichus today, it's a normal thing. Everyone comes over to you with a card. There's a card that could you give a donation? Those days wasn't common. My father used to go around collecting money for us to go on shlichus. That was something that all of us, siblings, always so inspired. Every simcha he called us, every simcha he wouldn't want to miss. He would always want to be there for us. To the point that for us, we were always right, and the teachers were always wrong. So my father, if anyone, he felt didn't do right to his kids, unfortunately, he remembered it till today, and that's how dedicated he was to his kids. We also had this in our house, that not only he was dedicated to us to make a nice house, but in our house, we always had guests. And sometimes I walk into my house, and I wouldn't know the people were eating by a table. So many Bachrim came around our home during Shiva, and now they're already older people, that they grew up in the Kranais and the Chafs and the Lamas, and they said they used to be in my house. A lot of them would sleep in our house. in Tishrei, we used to have so many Bachim sleeping in our house there, because my father wanted them to experience being in the Rebbe's Al Damas. So whatever it took, you could be in our house. And it wasn't just for his kids, but it's also for the Bachrim that grew up in 770 and then went out in Shlichus. It was very difficult. It was the days before you had all the social media. And my father made sure that Geshem and the Harlig, and Leibel Raskin, and Nachman Sudak, and all the other shluchim that went out in the late years and the early chafs, that he would give them what they need in order for them to still feel connected to 770. My daughter last summer went to London. And she came by Nachman Sudak's house, and Nachman Sudak's wife told my daughter, so you don't understand what your father meant for Rav Nachman. He used to go every day to the mailbox and wait, maybe there'll be a package there, and he'll know with the green ink, that's coming from my father. He waited on a daily basis. That was Mechaya Nefesh there. So that's something that was quite inspiring for us, that my father as a parent, my father as a chassid, didn't just preach it, but he lived it on a daily basis. And he didn't have to give lectures to us. He didn't have to tell us I'm such a great father. Like my brother said, he was very humble about it. But his whole essence, his morning, night, afternoon, was all about being connected to the Rebbe and all about his children and his family and the people in the community to have the love and the care, and also to be Iskash to the Rebbe. My father wasn't only his kids to be Iskash to the Rebbe, he had a tremendous love and care for us, for everything that we need in our life. Also, another point was some shluchim told us that came during Shiva that they went as shlichus because of my father. That means you think everyone says the kid that went as shlichus, went to Latera, maybe that was the projection. That's for after it's off the screen. So, people say, because what else are you going to do? But that's not true, because we felt it was a great source. We grew up that way. But then my father also inspired a lot of shluchim to go out in shlichus, to live the life of the Rebbe, to know what? Yeah, in the locker, he didn't need single malt, and he didn't need the fancy wines. The Ganelis Langer took it up a long way. Yes.
Wanted to add, someone texted me and I knew that we should mention that Shin Lamed Beis Shnasa Shiva, the whole out.
Do I need to say my whole thing over again?
Got it.
Thumbs up. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Someone texted me that Shnasa Shiva, Shin Lamed Beis, the whole thing about coming for Yudal Nissen, that to be it. My father was one who really pushed it. And so this was not the guy, you got to come to Yudal Nissen, you got to come to Yudal Nissen. He would tell people already. He's talking about the Shloshim Kislev. He's already telling us soon it's going to be Tevish Shvat. The other we're ready at Yudal Nissen. But the whole thing telling us to be other people about coming Yudal Nissen, to be in celebration. He said it was for my father. That was one of his main young people.
It's Shvat, we forbid you want to come back to Yudal Nissen. What? After Yitzhak Shving, so people can send them, they remind them why you have to come back to Yudal Nissen.
Yeah.
And they can make a Shlosh Kislev.
I'll show you this Kislev again, and then we'll get the Mamshim out.
Mamshah, my brother, man.
I did it, yeah. I did it, yeah.
My father, 50, 60 years ago.
I want to share some of my experiences growing up with my father and how he instilled in us to have the connection with the Rebbe. So I want to start off with saying that everything in our lives, everything that we did in our lives was surrounded the Rebbe. That means if we needed to go shopping for suits, the Marshal Pesach was coming, then we would have to go, if it was like a Monday or a Thursday, we would have to go after Kriyas Torah, and then we must be back before Mincha, and a few minutes before Mincha. And if we went somewhere, we usually go to downtown Brooklyn, a store called Mays, Alexander's, Shalom, and this is where we would go shopping. Now, what happened was we would get till we get to the store. Sometimes we'd be getting late. We'd be getting like 2 o'clock, 2:15. We all knew one thing, that it gets a certain time, and we're going to be late for Mincha,
we have to pick the suit that we're wearing. So if we're wearing a black suit, a pink suit, a purple suit, that's what we're going to be wearing for 770 on Pesach and for the Seder. Because the train needed to leave and we needed to get to 770 on time for the Rebbe for Mincha. I remember one time we went and I bought a suit and it was getting delayed and we couldn't take a train, and then we had to find a taxi and it was really getting late. And my father started to panic because it was getting late and it was going to be either late to Mincha or miss Mincha altogether. So we get into the car and he says, you know what, I'll give you extra money if you go fast, if you speed, if you take some lights, quickly, we have to get the Mincha, the Rebbe's coming out the Mincha. He didn't know anything, this guy. He was African American, was from Brooklyn, and whenever my father was trying to bribe him with some money, or tell me he has to go, or it's important, or it's a rabbi. And it looked like my father was like panicking. My father was trying any angle to try to get him to try faster. So my father's thinking, and he says, you're from Brooklyn, right? Do you know the Brooklyn Dodgers? Yeah. If I tell you a few names of Brooklyn Dodger players, will you drive fast? Yeah. Look, this player, that player, that player. Rabbi, I love it. Let's go fast. One light, another light, a third light. And Baruch Hashem, we made it all the way to 770 in time, so we can be there when the Rebbe came out. I know that he told me, this is in the MEMS, in the late MEMS and the nuns, at any time, as my brother said before, at any time the Rebbe would go out, he'd come out, and he would have the opportunity to see the Rebbe, he would come out. I remember that he told me that even when the Rebbe would go to the aisle, he would want to make sure to work it into the schedule that he can come to 770 and see the Rebbe as the Rebbe goes to the aisle, and many times the Rebbe would give him coins, give tzedakah to the people that were standing there, just to have that extra opportunity. The Rebbe was going to come out and be there. He wanted to have the opportunity to see the Rebbe. Everything in our lives was surrounded about the Rebbe, and when the Rebbe is coming out, and what important part is it to be to 770 and to be by the Rebbe's minyan. L'mashal, I'll give you an example. Yom Kippur, right? So we were little boys. I was a little boy, and I needed to come in the morning, Shachris. We'd eat a little bit in the morning, talking about 7, 8, 9 years old, and then we'd come to 770, and we'd start the davening on Yom Kippur morning, and then there would be Kriya, and then there would be the Fekairim. But he needed to take his children, they needed to eat something. And he really didn't have anyone to take them to eat. So we knew that there was a certain time when we could limit the damage. And when was that? Was right after Kairim, right after Kairim by Marakayan. So the state in our family was that by Marakayan, after we would sing Marakayan, we would come upstairs to the locker here. I remember, I think Yudel Kelly used to be the Baal Tefillah here, and Shom Levit, they would come in and try to make me eating my sandwiches. And we would come in, eat quickly, and then he would run down onto the bleachers. Like this, he could be there for Birchas Kayanim, at least to see the Rebbe for Birchas Kayanim. But what was that? To make sure that to limit the damage, that he should be away only for the little part that he could not be away from the Rebbe. I usually get up in my shul after Marakayan. There's nobody that come out, the minion there at that time. I usually say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really not sure what happens after the service at this time. Usually this is the time we left with my father, and I'm not really sure you're on your own. I'll see you guys later. This is showing you again, him taking the opportunity, and going, we all knew, all the kids knew that Maracay, and we went out, and that's what we were going to eat. Another thing that I don't remember, my older brothers remember, Mashal Pesach came, right? So the times in the evening when the Rebbe would eat upstairs for the Seder, my brothers, I think, thought that the Seder started by Kadesh and ended by Manashana, because my father would ask the Manashana to his father. As soon as he finished asking Manashana, he would stand up, wish the Yontiv, thank his father's Yartzei for running the rest of the Seder, and then he would go off to 770. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Only later on they realized that there's more to the Seder than just Manashtana. My father taught me that everything needs to be done in 770, as we spoke before. actually my grandfather Shloshim, the Tavshim and Ches, on Chav Tes of Menachem Av was here, right here in this room, because he says we're going to do the Shloshim for my grandfather was here in the room. Our brissen were all here, as Rabbi Kedlarski said. Man, there's pictures of me have a bris right here. Where else would you want to do your bris? I think Mendy Daltman was also telling my sister that when Mendy Daltman was born, that his bris should be in 770 as well. So I remember the all brissen, everything. My father would say, a bracha needs to happen. What's a better place to make the bracha than in 770? We all had the merit discussed for the Rebbe to cut our hair for Rav Shemesh. Now, my father did not want to ask the Rebbe. He didn't feel it was nice to ask the Rebbe. It wasn't felt that it was nice to ask the Rebbe to cut our hair for Rav Shemesh. But he wanted it really badly. So what did he do? He thought of a big plan. He thought of a plan. What was his plan? He said, tell my grandfather, and I think he asked Moshe Rothstein, because Moshe Rothstein Adam and my grandfather, Shul, President Rogers. So he told Moshe Rothstein, maybe you can do me a favor. My father put him up to it. If they can go, please. And I would like, my grandfather said, I would like to take my grandchildren to the Rebbe and to ask for bracha, and if the Rebbe could cut their hair. And so that's how it was. My father was going to ask, but he kind of knew when he can use my Zayda, the grace of Rav, to go in, and then we all had the merit. I think we went to Ganei Nefachtan. I don't remember. When the Ganei the Rebbe cut all of our hair. We had discussed that the Rebbe should cut our hair for our Rav Shemesh. Very special moments that my brother spoke about, that he had, and I had the same moment, which was that every single Friday when I was growing up as a child, we had discussed that my father again would come very early to 770, try to be the first one in and the last one out. We would come on Friday and we would stand and wait for the Rebbe to go home. The Rebbe would go home for a few minutes before Shabbos. We'd go out, we'd go with the car, go home, and then come back. But every time he came in and out of 770, we had this chus to get coins from the Rebbe, which is beautiful. So every single week we'd go and we would get coins from the Rebbe on the way in, and then they would come back on the way out. I remember one time for myself, that one time I was standing there and getting some coins, and for some reason, all the coins fell out of the Rebbe's pockets. Yeah, it just fell all over the floor. It must have been the Rebbe's pocket. It wasn't in his hand. So I remember jumping down to the floor right away, grabbing all the nickels from the floor, picking it up and putting it back into the Rebbe's hand and giving it back to the Rebbe. This was because my father brought me to 770, so we had this opportunity to be here and to be able to get all the coins and to get the brachas from the Rebbe. One time on Friday, my younger sister, I was standing with my younger sister, Bini, and we were standing on the walkway between the two steps there, and she already lit Shabbos candles. And now the Rebbe's coming up from his house, and my sister lit the candles, and she started to hide behind me because she already lit the candles. And she's going, hiding as I'm standing here. The Rebbe's coming this way, and she's going more and more behind me. Never realized, looked at me, asked me, she said, "It's in Shabbos lit. Did she light Shabbos candles?" I said, "Yes." The Rebbe just gave me coins and just for myself. But again, the opportunity, because my father, I'm thankful to my father that he brought me here to 770 for every opportunity. But we knew also that when it's time to leave the 770, if you're not ready, he's leaving. So you better be ready no matter what. Not like in Chabad house and the Chabad rabbis today, where the wife says another few minutes, we don't know which shirt to pick for the child, we don't know what color, what's the color scheme that the kids are wearing, you have to match. You wait, you come a little late to shul. No, when it was time to leave the 770, and he wanted to make sure to see the Rebbe when the Rebbe comes in or the Rebbe goes out. You needed to be on that train, you needed to go, otherwise you have to find your own way to 770. So we needed to be ready. I know my father, had this interesting thing, which was that when the Rebbe was out, he did not want to leave or be away. So there's a shtickle problem. What's the problem? The problem is that we know that on Achar Pesach, you have to drink 4 cups of wine, right? And you have to eat matzah, there's a different bringing. And 1 cup, which cup are you holding? Everyone brings their own wine, right? So you have to drink 4 cups of wine. Now my father was afraid that he didn't want to miss Chas v'shalom if he's going to go and drink the 4 cups and water and this and that. Then maybe during Kashal Bracha, well, what happened was he would have to go outside, leave the room there, maybe go out to or some people needed to go out. So he was so worried about that. So there's difference of opinion. I think I remember that he used to start drinking those 4 cases like this. You should have to go to the bathroom. I think the second day Pesach. No, but really, I think he started early in the day. He would bench at 2 o'clock and then start drinking it because he did not want to chas v'sholem be away from the Rebbe for 1 minute. I think you told me that he said that he would drink it after Kesher Bracha. He would drink his 4 cups of wine. He was so worried, the Rebbe gave him the source of the. This is just our personal perspective. He was so worried that on Sukkot, what's going to happen chas v'sholem if he's going to oversleep? It was Sukkot, and if he, is going to go lay down, what happens? He had a fabring and he went to bed 1, 2 o'clock. What's going to happen? So first of all, his policy was he didn't go to bed. He didn't go into a bed. He would sleep on the couch. And then what he did is he set like 4 different alarm clocks in the house in 5 different rooms in case chas v'sholem he should be late or miss it. Chas v'sholem, he was so worried. But Baruch Hashem, he never missed it. But he was so worried about it that he would have 80 people wake him up and 4 different alarm clocks. Chas v'sholem, he did not want to miss anything. Because my father taught us this and brought us with him, as you heard from my brothers and myself, we merited tremendous
What are you trying to say? I just lost.
Shloshim, Keruvim, and brachos from the Rebbe. Because we were here. So I just want to share with you too, because my father slept me here, and that's why I'm here to say that I'm in debt and I'm grateful to my father that he took us and brought us and slept us here. So first of all, we know that he would take the little Esrog and he would give it to everybody to shake. He would also go in a few minutes later, and he would give the Rebbe something to eat and to drink in the sukkah. So somebody needed to hold the little Esrog. So a number of years, my older brother Shalom Ber had the schus, but when he went on shlichus, after he went on shlichus, I had the schus to be able to hold the Rebbe's little Esrog for 5 to 10 minutes while the people made the bracha on the little Esrog. Another great schus that I had because of my father was the middle of Simchas Torah and Tavshim and Vav. The Rebbe turned to my father and told him during one of the kafas, "Lernois von Zun." It was only me standing. "Lernois von Zun vitzaklapen." And then he turned to me and looked at me and says, "Lernois the tata vitzaklapen." I guess my father was standing there and wasn't clapping so much, and I was, 12, 13-year-old boy and making lebedik there. So. And then those that remember, the Rebbe started to make like a sleeping motion with his hands to Tati, to my father, that he's not singing. He made and that he's kind of asleep during Simchas Torah. For those that remember, I'm gonna put down mic tray went something like this. He went like this to show that he was sleeping, right? Yeah. And then kind of he said like, no, this is not the way to do it. The Rebbe made very, very strong with his hands. So that was a special moment. The other special moment about I'm so grateful to, and I'll end with this, to my father for always schlepping me.
When a rabbi says I'll end with it, it doesn't mean anything.
That's just the 3rd inning. Was the one time my father on Friday, on Purim was on a Friday, and my father schlepped me with him to 770. And it was Mincha 3:15 in the afternoon. And what happened was, this is Tavshim and Aleph, and what happened was in Tov Shem Aleph, the Rebbe came out to Mincha, so people are Mitzayim, or people home have to give the have to do the Shalosh Monas and all the other things that go with it. It was a very small crowd here for Mincha. Then the Rebbe left and went to his room, and it was a few minutes later, and I'm standing by the locker of my father, and suddenly this running. Another person was there, he's also part of the story. And basically, my father's the locker because he would have to close up 770, so he wouldn't rush right away home. And suddenly the Rebbe comes running because this movement that people are coming, the Rebbe comes into the room and they close the door. And the Rebbe is saying a Meyer. So my father grabbed wine, I was standing with him. He grabbed the wine from the locker and he basically wine in the cup. So we went into, we came to the back door, it was closed, we banged on the door lightly, and it was very full over here. And the Rebbe was sitting saying the Meyer here, right over here. And Rabbi Chadika was standing next to the Rebbe. He came a little later. And then there was, Yil said there was no room there. I remember standing kind of right next to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe was saying the Maimer and literally standing, but there was no room between me and the Rebbe. And the Rebbe finished the Maimer. And then when he finished the Maimer, he said, Selah Chaim. Then he turned to me, I'm 8 years old. He said to me, standing right to the side of the Rebbe, he says to me, does Selah Chaim? And I said, no, you don't remember this. But Levi Garel, I know Levi Garel was here because he poured me a full cup of wine and said, look, I'm to the Rebbe, I finished a full cup of wine. I know for sure you were here. You don't remember pouring me a cup of wine, you told me, but you poured the cup of wine that I said, look, I'm the Rebbe said that on Akbalas. But this was because my father taught us always that whenever you have the opportunity to be 70, to be next to the Rebbe, you should be there. And because of that, I merited so many great Kiruvim and miracles and brachas and coins. And for that, I am grateful to him. And may we merit to see him together with the Rebbe in 770 in Meyer of Yemei Mamash.
Just for the record, someone texted me, it was Mem Zion that we have returned.
Zion, sorry.
Come over around there. You know, my father had many friends. One of his closest friends was Gersh Mendel Gerov, Gersh Mendel Gedelik. So we were so we're the second generation. There's a lot of letters going back and forth. Sergeant is very helpful to us during our period, Shiva, but also to say a few words going back as the children of two very good friends.
Let's be the next speaker.
Yes, you are on the schedule.
I'm sure a lot of things were said about their Meyer here, but there's one thing which I'm sure also his kids don't know. Do you know what Meyer Harlig's soap is? Meyer Harlig's soap.
So?
Soap. The Zayt. Okay, look, that's the Zayt. One of the things your father did, which I've never heard from you yet, so maybe you don't know, since he was an emissary deed of my father and my mother. But we're not going to get into that. And we're going back to the early years here, so things were a little closer. We sat here, and the ladies were right there, and the bucket were here. Anyways, so your father used to ask the Rebbe every single Erev Yom Kippur lecture for my father, and Erev Pesach matzah for my father. And from after Pesach, every day waited. He used to get these, today you don't see them anymore. Used to be these kosher and la Pesach late that he used to sell, these red boxes. So your father must have had a collection of them because he used to put in the lekach in those zayt boxes. And from after Simchas Torah, every day we waited for the zayt box because we knew that the lekach is coming. But since those days to send things was very expensive, so he would send it by ship, not even airmail, because a box cost much more money. So the minig used to be, and we're talking about the cups here. I'm not that old, but it was the cups. On Yutes Kislev, my father used to give out brekelach to everybody from the lekach, and a Lag Boimer, my father used to give out brekelach of the matzah. So this was Meyer Harlig. We used to look forward to Meyer Harlig's say. That was one thing. When I came to the Rebbe the first time in Tafshin Chav Ches, I was 7 years old. Today, by Kinus Shloshim, we could have 1,400 kids, but when I came down in Chav Ches, I was 1. So I had the Rebbe to myself. The father used to help me. I was a balabatische kid. I couldn't daven with the Sidurim in 7. It was all ripped. It was all messed up. He always used to make sure that I have a nice Siddur, you know. So I used to daven right there. And the Rebbe's table didn't really reach till the Oren Cave. It was like a space in between. So the first time that I davened mincha here, the Rebbe sat down for Chazaras Hashatz. I came from Balabati for sure. After the Mandy Kapela Kodesh, there was no place where to sit. Everybody's standing. And I found if I go over there, I could sit on the bench. So I sat on that side of the bench, and the Rebbe was on this side. The Rebbe looked at me, I looked at him. But then, 2-3 times, I did it only once. But then I had competition. I wasn't the only child that came. A few days later, Harlig shows up. So we were 2 boys here for those minutes. And one day, what you were saying about the fact of being here by mincha, I stopped mincha here. I would go here for 2 months, but in between we went to Pittsburgh, whatever. So one time we had to go to Pittsburgh and we had to catch a flight. So my mother's idea, the Rebbe used to come in at 3:15, but sometimes the Rebbe would come in at 3:20, 3:25. A lot of times the little brother would come out and say the Rebbe said he's coming 10 minutes later, whatever. So we had to leave 770 at 3:30 on the dot, catch the flight. So if I would be here for minutes and the Rebbe comes in at 3:25, I was a little kid, I wouldn't be able to get out. It would be too fast. So we decided I'll stay in the hallway. I mean, if the Rebbe comes in after 3:30, so we won't see the Rebbe. At least we'll see the Rebbe go in, help the Rebbe there. The Rebbe walked the mincha then at 3:15. But I was out there. To come all around, I didn't know how. I did not have to do. So we stayed out there. But the Rebbe looked at me at the Sazoi when he came in. And I remember the Bochum was Shushki. When the Rebbe went out, and we were still standing there because it was still about 3:30ish. The Rebbe stopped in front of the elevator. The Rebbe went like this to me, called me over. The Rebbe asked me if I was with my knee. Okay, so I'm just telling you what it means. If a kid was here or wasn't here, how it was. My father used to look forward to the letters that the Meyer used to send. But another interesting thing is the shidurim, the hookups of the Fabrengens. First big one was in Shvatam Lamed. In Italy, the first one that we heard was Yud Tes Kislev Tafshin Lamed Aleph. That was the first time we had a hookup. Actually, my father, that was the first time he went to New York on that morning. You know, when we started coming often with Yud Tes Kislev Lamed Aleph. But around Hess, I don't remember, I must have been 7 or 8. My father got some kind of a machine that you could like attach to the telephone, like an amplifier. As an Isaac, was
Take off the bottom and screw the bottom.
no, that's if you want to play with the wires. But, my father's not do that. This whatever. And I remember, why did my father get it? Because after every Yom Tov, was after Shloshim, after Kislev, after Pesach, Meyer used to call my father and give him the nice what's happening inside. Over here was
3 in the morning.
9, 10 o'clock at night. There was 4 o'clock in the morning. We used to get up to hear the nice. Then, of course, we used to send all the letters. Another thing that Meyer, thank God, did. That's how my father felt at home. Besides, he used to send specifics, things. It used to be Zetla from the Rebbe. Today, everything is, of course, better people than accepted, better people minus. What? Minus to this one, to that one. So he used to retype it, he used to send it to my father. My father pushed to be able to feel at home. And So for states, when he came once a year for Chafar, it was a total different. So there's a lot of Hakaras which is needed to be given. When I was a little kid, to me, 770 was on the other side of the world. We had a grace there, and they always trying to metay what the place looks like. So I knew that Rebbe had skiing. But then I remember the Megillah, the Alma Gishtan, and then the Shluchei Hamele was schicke die Briefen and schicke die Sachen. For me, that was Meyer Harlig. Best that was. Yeah, so very sure the husband that tonight we should be reunited with everybody.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, regarding what you were saying about the Meyer, because a lot of people don't know the history of it. First of all, Shloshim Memal of Nachman. I don't know the setting of that.
No, Simchas Torah.
The Meyer of Purim Shloshim Memal. This was the last Meyer that they ever said over here. I happened to be that year on Shlippus in Haven. I was in the middle of the time. Don't ask me why. And I decided I was like Smreven. I called my friend who was going on the train. I said, "Goodbye, probably I'm running." I ran to the train station. I come out of the train station here with about 3 something. And mid the mall, someone was a younger man telling me that the Rebbe is bringing upstairs. Friday afternoon, it was putting out of Shabbos. There was nobody in the street. So I figured I can't miss it. It's my only chance to see if I bring it up here.
I will see it.
Oh. Yeah. Anyway, but I'm saying it the way I saw it. And I came in and I saw that door was closed. The door was closed. The door was closed. And I don't want to miss it. So I took that middle door and I opened the doesn't matter.
How to get in.
What?
You learned by that how to get in.
Oh, and how?
No.
So we opened the door and I saw a lot of people standing on the table and I heard the Rebbe's voice and I couldn't figure out if the Rebbe was sitting here like in this bar or the Rebbe, because I decided most probably it's like that you see the Rebbe sitting here. I went under the people. I just crawled straight. I came out over there and I came between the Rebbe and Rabbi. So in other words, here's the Rebbe and I'm here like this. But I couldn't go back out. We couldn't move, right? Yeah. I remember I came to the words, I'll talk to the Meyer. So I just stood there and I had just been by the Harlig the week before. He knew exactly who I am. Anyway, to be honest, I was standing there and that the whole thing took only a couple of minutes. Then they looked at the clock and said, "No, right happens on the time is the stier Onak Bolles," and that was probably so was Onak Bolles, and that's
Yeah, it was close.
Yeah. How did the Rebbe drink?
With a plastic cup.
It was two cups and it was full. The Rebbe turned like this. The Rebbe took two times. 2 cups, 2 times. 2 cups, one and the other, like this. David, like this.
I remember also the 2 cups. In my head.
And the Rabbi Mentlik was here. Somehow Rabbi Mentlik ended up here. And the Rebbe 1 cup, and then the Rebbe asked for a second one.
Is that what he said? No.
But the Rebbe didn't drink it over the table. The Rebbe drank it on the side like this, and then the Rebbe asked for a second. That's when I guess the time story happened, and and the rest is history. Then the Rebbe walked out. The Rebbe walked out and saw that door was open. Oh, my gosh.
I didn't hear it.
Sorry about that.
So first of all, my dad was here. He definitely be speaking them while we speak in English, not Yiddish. So we're ready. Strike out one. First strike out. Another thing is that, at least for me, that unfortunately I don't have many memories from the Talmud. But we take it for granted. He was here. We figured it out. But how to be next to Rebbe. But the truth is that for him, a lot of the things he did, he took a big risk. No one invited him in. He pushed for it. First of all, you have to work hard to always be here. In fact, always chabarai, put him in Aleph, and all these times, what's in Kippur Chavdalit, and all the times that the Rebbe, that the surprise thing that he was there, but he was always here and always waiting for the unexpected, and always and therefore he always chabarai to be at these times. But besides always being here and always being involved, he also took risks at different times to try to be close, and he didn't know. He could have gotten like a zipper, but he took the risk and the Rebbe let him in. One time, the Rebbe went to Levaya, whichever a few Levayas ever went to the Hill. They didn't go there. The Rebbe stood outside the gate, and the Rebbe said everyone should go inside. Everyone was standing up with the Rebbe outside the gate. The Rebbe said everyone should go inside to Levaya, not to stay outside the gate with the Rebbe. The Rebbe thought they were going to go inside. But he stood next to the Rebbe. He didn't want to leave the Rebbe. The Rebbe didn't tell him. But he was scared. He was taking a risk, but he did it anyways. He didn't want to stand next to the Rebbe. The other time, it put in my mind that he was scared how what's going to be, but he tried to be next to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe let him there. So the point I'm trying to say is that it wasn't always easy for him to do it, not just because I'd be there a long time, but also he was taking a risk, but he pushed for it. Well, even with the Luminescent, we saw that people wrote. Someone wrote that the Rebbe shouldn't give it to him, and then one time there was another complaint that happened against him being in the sukkah with the Rebbe, and he spoke to the Rebbe about it. It really, really bothered him. He took a risk. He was scared to do it, but he pushed himself in order to have the space to do it. Another thing is that he's very famous for everyone knows the Gabbai and Sheish Kitzah Fabregans and Big Dan. But the truth is, he didn't like doing it. He was uncomfortable. At the end, he liked it. Once he did it, made the announcement to the Rebbe, so it's a source, he had a source. But really, he was breaking his teva. Really, for him, he didn't like it. He wasn't comfortable. He knew all the jokes. He heard the things. And he preferred when he didn't do it. He was relieved when it was over. But he pushed himself because he really broke his teva to make the Fabranians, to be Gabbai. I remember in later years of the Rebbe's room, when Zed wasn't there, he wasn't really comfortable. He liked it better when he didn't have to do it. And he didn't like to give him Mishaberes to make it up. But he didn't like to do it, but he pushed himself because he felt it was a big source, and he really broke his teva to be able to do the solution that happened. Another thing is that we saw by him that after Yom Pamos, and unfortunately there were divisions in Lubavitch, he pretty much stayed good with everyone on both sides. Yeah, he had his own way, but he didn't. He was always friendly with everyone. He said hello to everyone. He did not get involved. He didn't choose a side and make enemies with everyone on the other side. He stayed good friends with everyone. He used to go without getting into official thing, having closed the Zoom. But the point is that, without getting into examples, I thought it was a very big Meyer that he stayed. And same with the Harlig, Shemendel, there were certain Siddim, Shmolu, that they stayed good with everyone, all the maskiras, they were friendly with everyone. They didn't make. So I think that's a tremendous mile about him. Another thing is that he was very, without a cloud, he was a Kabbalah Kulam, same part of Yalpes. He was very friendly to people. He would always greet people, give them, warm hellos. And a few kids that were in the Rebbe's room, that they were all, even kids, kids, everyone was his friend. Even when he was older, it was all Meyer, and it was all very friendly. He was the one that was friendly with everyone, even the little kids, and he did it very friendly. He was an environment person. Last thing I want to say is that it's something people don't focus about it, but I think it's very much connected to his being a chassid and kusher and always being by the Rebbe, is that he hated Balabatish. He hated restaurants. He hated anything like dressing Balabatish or doing anything Balabatish or pizza, pizza, sushi, anything that represented Balabatish guy. for him was was safe, was safe for Chazan. There used to always be a line, don't turn the President Street, because there was a cousin wanted to buy flowers for his kala. And for him, that was the worst thing. Flowers for kala, that was the worst thing. And he really lived with the idea of being a Chassidish Yid and without Balabatishkeit. I lived with him for many years, and his house he always had that. He never cared for fancy furniture, fancy food. He never ordered food takeout. The biggest we made normal things. That was the most he would get from somewhere, and he didn't even want it. For him, it was nimmus because it represented the Goyish guy. He was never going without us having kapata. Florida or Vegas or Top. He always would dress like a chassid proudly, and in every way. So deodorants, his cream, we think that Rebbe would use that. He couldn't stand umbrellas. He was always a way of. Besides that he was always trying to copy and do the way that Rebbe does things, but it was always a special. He's always made specially to stay away from Balabatishkeit. And I think that, and together with that also, you had like certain things in Yerushalayim that people don't think about it, but he was very much so. Very, very careful about Negavasser. Obviously, a normal person gets Negavasser, but even when he was older and it was hard for him to walk, he was very, very machmir about Negavasser. One time he really wasn't feeling well, he couldn't speak, he couldn't walk. And Mendy and I, we carried him to his room, and he couldn't even talk. He pointed, and he took the bathroom. I couldn't go to the bathroom, and the bathroom tried helping him. So no, he was pointing Negavasser. They wouldn't let us put him down in his bed without putting Negavasser next to the bed. And then later on, in the last few months, he always, whenever he's waking up, he's always asking for Negavasser. Earlier, he couldn't go to the mikvah. Years earlier, he couldn't go to the mikvah because of his foot, because of his right. But he would watch Negavasser many times. I don't know, 13 times. I don't know. It was a cheshbon he had that he would watch extra. But it was a small thing. Shnai Mikra. Every year of Shabbos, he'd sit by his place and do Shnai Mikra. And his Rambam was always very careful with. He learned that I was my mother. And he would sit every night for 2 hours by his desk, and we'd go to the Fiyasin. That people don't think about it. He was very, in a way, he was very tznuah. He would never talk about himself. He would never. I lived in the house many years, and it was always like took years to find out a new thing that he does. Certain fast days he fasted, certain minhagim he had. He would never talk about himself. He always kept everything a secret. He never showed off how he's better. He never talked about his own personal things. He speak about other people's stories, but he was cloudy. He was tznuah and he was humble.
No, just to add what you said, I remember, at the end, I was in the hospital and he really couldn't do anything. And in the last few days, and the same thing, he asked me, pointing, he really was able to eat. I didn't know what he wanted. He wanted to wash his hand before he even touched his collar. And he was like, davening. It was like, that was something that was so important to him. Like I said before, it's not like when he spoke about it, I love having you and all the 8 o'clock there, all around the house with suitcases and sleeping all over the house. We couldn't have been happy.
I'd like to take this opportunity, especially on Carter today. We're talking about an original friend of my father's, Gary Mendel.
And how the generations he had his friends up the Yuds.
Yeah, right. He went to the Yuds, the Chavs, the Lamens, the Men, and the Samach, and now we're getting to the Ayans. And there was school, right? It's been very helpful to my father the last. We were all away, and he was the one. He would take him around when we couldn't run around. Take him to the oil, take him to whatever, help him out. Really pushed to doing the Yoman. Was instrumental in setting the Fabrengen here at night. We're all children. We don't live in town, so he took care of that. Working on the chura, working on the different plans of we're working on a website to post everything for my father. We're going to make a website where we're going to post the Chayenu, we're going to post the Yaman, we're going to post the different chuvas and the different things from my father's collection. So really, of course, I tell you thank you for what you've done for my father, for all the organization.
Actually, please come up here to say a few words.
Thank you very much for taking up tonight.
Because they come over here. Turn a awesome so you can be on the. And you see what my father did? The first thing he did when he came up there? A day later, what was it? A day or two later, you became engaged, right? He got up to my father and he got it and made that upcoming wedding. And again, to thank him for what he has done.
Molly Button.
Come over here. Come down. He was the last crowd with him and a couple of your friends. So, yeah. That's the. That's Beryl. That's we were working with.
Chaim. In Delam Al Tamid, that I first remember speaking in 770, definitely in a microphone. Following after first mold is a chreinus, some people that knew the mayor throughout the years. He said we had people here from the youth, from the hubs, from the Lameds. Even then, we following Mendy Dalton. There was actually a special thank you that I got involved with in Breda. I remember when Mendy was already getting married, he asked me to help walk the mayor to 770, help take him to the aisle after Mendy got married. I was by the aisle today, every Shloshim was bringing the mayor, came out to end up being almost once a week, bring him to the aisle. And it almost felt, the past few times I went to the aisle, almost felt a little funny, walking to the aisle without him. Most recently, we went with Yossi. Last time we went to the aisle was Meyer and Shloshim. And the amount of Maisa, I remember the mayor would always call me up. Those that knew him held it very in his mind. Forget about the little notebook with Aliyahs. He had a cheshbon of what the Kriyas was for like the next 3 years. When Pesach was, when Rosh Hashanah was, he knew it. But besides for the Aliyahs, he had always get cheshbon. He'd always tell me for the next 3 times he already had what days we're going for the whole setup. And I remember one time somehow it fell out that something about a Rosh Chodesh. So I don't remember what the Kriyas was. He told me that Amaisa actually has to do with today, with the Chodesh Nachmov. He said that one time the Rebbe, I think throughout the years, maybe I think throughout the years the Rebbe only went to the oil, I think 4 times in a stage. Right? Right. So I think it was a stage from Nachmov Toshin. The Rebbe told, Rabbi Groner that he wants to go to the oil. The label was shocked that the Rebbe is going to go to the years that Rebbe never went to the oil. The Rebbe told the label based in just I'm not going to yard site. So something today, Maisa has to do with today that I heard from him, and I think something that tonight's Arnakin's yard site. This Maisa that Meyer said they went to the that year. There's something Mendy Dalton touched upon in the Kodesh of that Meyer exemplified throughout his life. But not many people. Everyone spoke about the Meyer's Iskashos tonight, many other things. But there was a certain Nikoda of that he had almost like Arnakin. After Gimel Tammuz, even though there was they say in Shabbos, the mayor always smiled to everybody, even if he couldn't stand the person. He gave everyone a smile, greeted them like a good friend, whether young or old, anybody. And I remember there was a certain issue that happened regarding the Shloshim Kislev Haberdengens, and I was in touch then a lot then with Harlig with Shia then, and there was the mayor had all the rights to let's say to blast the guns, and he told, and there was even a few people who were coming preparing letters about this and that, and Goddess and Pashvil, and he said, so if you remember, he backed down right away. Whenever there was anything, someone somebody would always distance himself from doing it publicly, and so many documents in a few Nikodas about how we have to commit to something like that. It was something that the mayor was a big doctor. It's something I think he picked up from his father many different ways. Was I always noticed whenever we go to the hill, or remember was he always looked, he always had inside his pocket this Meyer from the Americans. He always pull it out whenever there was a bed of Hoshas, always made sure to say from the Siddur. It was always bedactic and Shiur my Rambam. There was also some sort of student from the Meyer Shapiro. And I don't think you want us to mention here that he was bedactic on this.
And there was, I just want to share the two or three kindness that I heard from him, that when we go to the oil, he brought this up. Remember, he would always have a list of all the we went over, prepared the mentioned all the Anash names. Before you go, he would write by the desk if you had anything timely, then to be Meisif. And he said, I remember one time mentioned to me that it was a frost in the winter. One of the times he got in the car, we turned to the heat in the car. He always wanted the heat very high, even in the summer later. And he says, you know, that when the Rebbe was in the early years, before they built the before they built the Bachram built, before they put the Bretel there, it was the Rebbe, he said the Rebbe was there for hours and hours. He said the first, there was no heater. He said he went around and took it upon himself to go and make sure that the Rebbe has a gas heater with fire. He went around collecting money for it. His Yumanim, like was mentioned many times, Rabbi Zalton spoke about it a lot tonight about his Yumanim. I sat with the Meyer for many hours. We published about 20 or 30 different installments for Chodas and for different Chavedas, and Hashem will be a lot more that will be coming out in the future. And I noticed in his Yumanim was that Friday night he always had the exact time that everyone went home. And he sometimes even in the summer, 10:30 at night, 10 o'clock at night, sometimes in the winter, very late. And I was puzzled. He told me that he would wait and sit here, he wouldn't go home until that everyone went home. That he would wait. For him, it wasn't shaykh that he should be sitting and eating Sukkot Shabbos while the Rebbe was still sitting in his room and didn't go home yet. I asked him what would the Rebbe do Friday night. He says he remembers hearing the Rebbe would learn the Torah. So I think in the early years, I think he would have a chavrusel with the Torah with the also then at the time while the Rebbe went to Torah, right? And like it was mentioned also about the Farbrengen, that there was one time him and Achamov, I think Rabbi Kappel mentioned him and Achamov, I think it was Chavhei, when he went up to Gan Yisrael, then he missed the Farbrengen then. Wasmer Vason, I don't know, maybe Yisrael maybe will correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's only 2 Farbrengens that a Meyer missed, which is a lot more than any of the people from Harlig Maskidis that he was by. That he missed only 2 Farbrengens. One was from him and Achamov, then another one was by Shabbos Farbrengen. And then the Shabbos Azir Mitzvah was by the morning list, and he got a mind, right? There's also, I remember when we used to go to the ale, he was always very makbid that the younger light should go with a kapota. He said, he likes to give an Ibrid and cup, something have a kapota on them, and I remember he said, he was very sharp, we get nights for Rebbe Yechidus without a kapota. It was maybe Rabbi Harlig will say the story maybe later about the kapota. And there was all these different things that he was, I think it was a Maisa, somewhere in the group now, like he was a very shaman last Rebbe. So maybe someone after the Chas and asked the Rebbe about a kapota. Was someone else. And the Rebbe said, as with the Grech and the Madrege from Meyer Harlig, can you give him the kapota the ganze Woche. I just want to land off that something that definitely I could chayit in a little bit, the fact that the Meyer was makbid to go to the oil whenever there was an opportunity in the earlier years. This is already the right of the Palms, the Meyer had his Makan Kavu on the oil bus in front of Yossi bus. Later on, even whenever he had opportunity, even when it was very hard for him in his later years, even when he was in the wheelchair, he would always try to find opportunity to go to the oil. He would always say that we're mamish right over here in the Rebbe's Daladamas, whenever we have opportunity, Chassidim should go to the Rebbe. And even in the 70s, I remember the Meyer, there was no option. Even if it was a time that was the Sarsa Dibris against there schwer. There was no Agoda show for him. There was no Menachem Nachum. It was either 770 or no show. It's something that I think we can all take.
It's another short exercise of the 70.
Something that we can all take a lesson from. And I'm just going to finish off the last thing. When we were in the hospital, the Shab was Motzei Shabbos, and I went with Yossi then. Meyer was there then in the hospital. And I remember he was in Gefährlich, so and the one thing I remember he wanted to know was about there's 2 things he wanted, but there's one thing that didn't speak about was the Siyum Sefer Torah for Yaldi Yisrael. Stuff on Achmod is going to be the 8th Siyum Sefer Torah for Yaldi Yisrael. It's going to be taking place by the Kaisel, arranged by the Meyer's good long-time friend of Shmuel Greisman, who was one of the Shloshim that he would always send the updates and the news to. That's what was going on in Beis Chayenu. And I remember then Rabbi Greisman all the time was always asking me how the Meyer's doing his own side. Video called him then. And the Meyer wanted to know right away what's doing with the Siyum. Where's the Sefer Torah holding? Who's going to put on the Kesser? Where are the talking going to finish it in time? Remember, he was very helpful up, even in his last.
All the water is being sponsored.
Yeah. By the Siyum.
Yeah.
The 5 is going to go, right?
We're sponsoring the water.
Kalbanim will be Niskazanda from the Rebbe Dolamat Galenu, and no question that the Meyer is right there, can be Emil Meshamish the Rebbe, and he's already is now.
I just want to say two things. One thing is just another reminding me of my say that whenever he would eat, he used to put in his house for breakfast, lunch, supper. He would put on his hat, and he would only eat with a hat, so he could wear a hat when he makes a bracha. And he was back with everything. He was wearing a hat when making brachas. Number two, when he was in rehab, most in his house, he was announcing Shmuley, and Shmuley was very nice. So it came out of Kippur, and Shmuley brought him in the rehab. He went to his place with COVID, the COVID test. Shmuley brought him a chicken into rehab. And
Fish, fish fantastic.
Appreciate it.
One of my other favorite Nigunim, who actually sang it by the Klur, was the Shvedish kids, and the other one I really liked, and that is
An interesting story that was shared that when my father got married, he got married the fifth night of Hanukkah. So Shabbos brachos, by Zayda spoke to the Rebbe. He said, we have a problem. I want my father to come Shabbos brachos to the shul, the Mechash shul. A lot of Balabatish Yidden went there, a lot of Kashvi Yidden went there. There weren't Lubavitchers, also Lubavitchers. And my father was the only child. And of course, they would like that was supposed that the Boston and college should come to the shul for Shabbat brachas and have a Shabbat brachas after davening. And they knew that the Rebbe was going to bring him. My father's not, on his own, is not going to want to come, so kind of speak to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe told my Zayda, the Rebbe could have told my father, listen, why don't you go there for Shabbos? He said, no, I told my Zayda, let him stay here for bringing. Why don't you make once a Shabbos a Malava Malka for the shul and invite the Balabatim, and they'll be very impressed. Fast forward many years later, Tavshin Nemtes, Tavshin Nun, when my brother Sholber and his oldest son, Mordechai, was born, so my father wrote a letter to the Rebbe asking for bracha for my mother, that she's going to California for the bris to give her bracha. So the Rebbe asked, like my father, why aren't you going along? Because of Shabbos and Barchim. I'm not sure if he answered, he's not going along because of Shabbos and Barchim. Like he wanted to kind of stay in 770. So the Rebbe told him, you should go to California and you'll fabring with the people in the Chabad house and you'll get the Anash after Shabbos and you'll know what went on over here. So you see that the Rebbe wanted my father to have a shpot the people in the Chabad house. That's every stage of life has its own mission and what it needs to be done. So when he got married to this people with the Rebbe, later on to go to your Chabad house and be in the Shluchas and be over there. So I share this thought the day my father's Levaya. And I remember we went on a bus from our house and we went to 770. And I was thinking to myself that now we're going from a place where, as I mentioned before, the home 442 was a home where he raised his family, which he had so much dedication to. So many Bachrim went to the house, lived in my house. And then we're going to 770, it was also my father's home. And you think about it, he was an only child. My Zayd also had a Mordechai, was an only child. And on the bus, we kind of had all his children and son-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, and grandchildren. The bus was packed. Many of them, most of them, all Shloshim and changing the world. And not only that, not only affected us, but there's so many Shloshim out there affecting so many communities. So it's really a job for all of us. And a lot of times a person thinks that, in order to affect the world, you need to be, who knows what. You need to have thousands of people to affect the world. Here was my father, one chassid, dedicated to the Rebbe, lived his life, inspired his kids through love and care, inspired so many chassidim to have that dedication to the Rebbe, and literally it changed the world. And I can tell you, as children, we were surprised. We came to 770. We didn't expect such a turnout. We didn't realize how many people's lives he affected just the way he lived his life. And they say the greatest lecture, speech a rabbi can give is the way he lived his life. Definitely my father lived that way. And we have children that achrayus to have that same dedication and skashiness like my father had. It all started here in this room.
One thing was Sunday morning when you lived there, I walked out on the porch. It was like an hour after that, and my neighbor was standing across there and he told me, you know what? An era in Lubavitch has ended. Then he said he was a young man, he was a bacher, from Chabad, he already heard then, about Meyer Harlig, he said this was like an era of Lubavitch of my father, we physically, but we'll continue on. We will only leave the hands and the feet, and all the people are inspired to continue to live what he has taught us.
1 year, Hashem Le'Avra, my father finished giving out people who have been answered, and then he went to the Rebbe's sukkah, and the Rebbe was sitting in the sukkah, it was after davening, And the Rebbe told him if he could please call up the Rebbetzin now. Where's the Rebbe? I think the Rebbe Boston. We go and call up now Boston. The Rebbe wants to go home now and eat some young. My father said okay, and he went into the Maskiras, and he picked up the phone. He called up the Rebbetzin, and my father told the Rebbetzin that the Rebbe would like to come home now to eat Sudas Yontif. So the Rebbetzin told my father that to tell the Rebbe that the Yontif meal is not ready yet. So my father went back into the Rebbe's sukkah and told the Rebbe that the Rebbetzin said that the Yontif meal is not ready yet. So the Rebbe told my father to tell the Rebbetzin that she shouldn't rush with making the meal for Yontif. And whenever the food will be ready, we'll come home to eat. So my father went back and told those words to the Rebbetzin. The Rebbe said she shouldn't rush. Whenever the food will be ready, we'll come home to eat. Then my father went back to the Rebbe's sukkah. He said, the Rebbe said, if that's the case, usually, as you all know, that in Yom Tov, they used to announce what time Mincha is going to be. So they already announced in a certain time. So then he told my father, if that's the case, because the Rebbe is not ready yet, Yom Tov, the meal on the Shana Rabbah, we're going to change the schedule now. And get me ready a minyan upstairs now. And also, not only shouldn't get me just ready a small minyan, but also don't announce it to the people that I'm not going to daven the regular time, whatever I was going to daven before, but we're going to make mincha early. And then even my father asked many questions why, but he told the Rebbe told my father the reason why he shouldn't announce to anybody now that I'm going to be coming out in a few minutes right after you organize me a minyan, because I know right now all the families in the Nights are all sitting with their husband, wife, and families and eating Sudas Yontif. And if you can announce it that I'm making our mincha, everybody's going to run away from the houses and come to mincha, and I don't want people to run away now. So therefore, and run to 770, so therefore don't announce it to everybody. And then he said, after mincha, I'm going to go home to eat, and then I'll come back later and give out lekach. And that's what my father organized within a few minutes of mincha. The Rebbe came inside without mincha. Then after mincha, the Rebbe went home to eat Sudas Yontif. It's one of the lessons we could see from here, a very, very powerful lesson. If somebody goes home, wherever and your family, your spouse makes you dinner, it's not exactly a lunch or breakfast, it's not exactly wedding time. If the Rebbe could change the whole schedule, so everybody else should be concerned about it. Another baby, I'll tell you another interesting story. I remember once as a kid, the Rebbe was going home. It was Simchas at night. First there was a Farbrengen, then there was a Kafis. Then after a Kafis, as you all know, the Rebbe used to walk home. So the Rebbe started walking home in front of 770 on Eastern Parkway. And my father's walking behind him. And then when he came to 2-3 houses down, the Rebbe saw an elder chassid was laying on the floor, but didn't feel so good. And then they were speaking about being an animal, a doctor, who's going to help him out. And he was laying, didn't feel so good, so the Rebbe was waiting to see what's going to happen. There were other people already there trying to help him out. They just stopped because he saw what was going on for whatever reason, but there was other people already helping. And after a few minutes, he turns around to my father and told my father if he could please go now to the Rebbetzin and tell her that that he held himself up for the reasons that he held himself up now. And to tell the Rebbetzin he's going to be home right after another few minutes. He'll be home. And so the interesting thing over here, so she won't be worried that he's going to be another few minutes late. So she shouldn't be worried. So I asked him, Father, so what happened? So he told me that when he came to the Rebbe's house, he walked up the steps, and as he walked up the steps to the house, he saw the Rebbe looking out of the window. When she saw my father walking up the steps, she came downstairs and she asked him what's going on. He said, they told me to tell you that he feels so good, so he held himself up in a few extra minutes, but he's going to be home soon. So then my father started walking back to 77 down Brooklyn Avenue. And then he met the Rebbe on Brooklyn and Eastern Parkway. And the Rebbe stopped and asked him what happened. He said, I came to the house and I told the Rebbe, so he said, you'll be about a few minutes late. He said, not to be concerned. The Rebbe told him, thank you very much for going. He was a Yom Tov. But you can see here a very, very powerful story. If anybody can even imagine it, there was a Farbrengen. There was a kafis. We're talking about 3, 4 in the morning, and the Rebbe was concerned that in another few minutes, that he's only going to run a few minutes late, even though he's already hours and hours and 770. So it looks like the Rebbe really had a kind of a schedule and knew exactly what's going to be on, even though we're talking about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Another interesting, as you know, that from when the Rebbe became Rebbe until Tavshin Lamed Ches, for whatever reason, there wasn't really any hot water by the Rebbe's room. So, but the Rebbe, the only food that he had in his room was that he had tea in his room. Where the tea used to come from is the Rebbe used to make it, and either my father went himself to pick it up, or if he couldn't, for whatever reason, if he couldn't pick it up, he would send somebody else to do it. But usually he did it himself. Now the schedule was like this: that some days she would leave the hot water. The Rebbetzin will leave the hot water by the door, the thermos, and some days, if when he came to the house and the thermos wasn't by the door, then he would give a knock on the door, ring the bell, and he would go inside and wait till the Rebbetzin finished making the hot water and pour it into, take it off the stove, pour it into the thermos. And sometimes then the Rebbetzin will talk to him a few minutes, ask him different things and speak to him about different things. So one of the times, while she was making my father came to the house and the thermos wasn't outside, when he knocked on the door, she opened the door and she was getting ready to hot water and the thermos, put it all together to give it to him. So he started just like asking him, say, how is my mother doing? How's the family? How's the kids? So my father had an opportunity to say, he told the Rebbetzin on me that was a little kid then, maybe 4 or 5 years old, that in the last few weeks I'm getting a lot of colds. And the doctor suggested I should take out my tonsils. I know in those days it was pretty common they would take out tonsils. So the Rebbetzin told my father that something that they used to put in you, there must be a reason, and he shouldn't take it out. Then she told my father, when the Rebbe's going to come home, I'm going to re-ask him the same question, hear what the Rebbe has to say. So a few days, so then I guess the next day or two, when he came back to the house again, and he knocked again the door because the thermos wasn't outside. She opened the door, she went inside, and she gave him the thermos, hot water. And then she told my father that my father asked what happened. She was standing, he went in, he said, when the Rebbe came home, I did ask him. And the Rebbe asked me what I said, and I told him what I said, that something they should put in, you shouldn't take out. And the Rebbe agreed with me that some they should put in shouldn't be taken out. Baruch Hashem, my colds went away, and I didn't have to take it out. As they say, it's some of the stories that are out there. And also sometimes interesting, sometimes when he would bring the tea, different times should give the Rebbe, my father, different errands too, like sometimes she used to get for the Rebbe a new talus, should give my father the talus and ask him if he could put the tzitzis in it, then bring it back to her. So my father sometimes would make the tzitzis, and then she would bring it back to the Rebbe. I saw them lately talking about WhatsApp. I'm not familiar with that. Yeah, I saw the lady in these different groups. I know all the only thing I asked them, like the last year, I asked about questions and different stories. So that makes me read groups of different things. It's things I used to read questions about this and that, exactly what to talk about. All I asked was that when the Rebbetzin asked you to do tzitzis, did she give you any further instructions? And he told me she didn't. Right, but I asked him, did she give you further instructions?
Story that I heard from my father in the this is the tough shit. They used to, some of the Hasidim used to, in summer, this is a hot season, they used to rent bungalows, little apartments in Bar Rockaway, we would say. And they would go there, the elderly Hasidim. And they suggested, those who so suggested on the elderly Hasidim, that they should, the Rebbe should also go there for, spend a couple of days. I believe again, he said it was a Bar Rockaway. So the Rebbe responded to them. He says it doesn't sound. He should give up of a day seeing the Frierdiker Rebbe, not to go over there. He said he's not going to give it up. You know, there's cautious over there to be connected. He says every single day to sit and to watch the Rebbe, to be with the Rebbe. You know, when now with the Shloshim, he's supposed to learn the Mishnayos, right? I learned a Mishnah that caught my attention about a little lack of discussion. I was learning about it was from Sukkot. Over there, it tells us, they ask the question, when are you making nanuim on the sukkah, on the lulav? So there's one opinion that says, Hoidul Hashem, and then it says, Ona Hashem Ashiyana, that's Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says, he also say, Ona Hashem Atzlicha. Right, that's what they're doing. So Rabbi Kiva was a Chiddush, younger man. He says, easy, but I'm going to believe it, Rabbi Yeshua. During Hallel, what was he doing? He was looking at the Rebbe. He was looking at the Rebbe, I'm going to believe Rabbi Yeshua. And he says that everyone was being menaneh of their lulav. They didn't do it about Hashem Matzlich and only Hashem Mashiach. What caught my attention is, first of all, what kind of Hasidim over there, people, the Rebbe's over there, Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua are doing it only by Hashem Mashiach. They are doing it also by Hashem Mashiach. But we see, what is Rabbi Akiva doing? He was sitting there and watching what their Rebbe was doing. I think that really was the synopsis of my father. My father was watching the Rebbe, trying to look at what he's done. Remember, Sukkot, he also had 36 Hoshainus. Nasa. Why? Because he said that's what the Rebbe had. Certain level of discussions that he had was to see what the Rebbe did, and that's what the Rebbe did, watch him, and what the Rebbe did, he himself was doing. I think that's two. The socks, yeah, the cushion the socks, right?
Hoping to have socks ready when I was a kid.
But I don't know if people go for striped shirts. I'm not criticizing, it's white. I remember a kid. Short sleeves, only short sleeves, no longer. So that's a little bit concerning. It's also haircut 3 times a year. You're down with Kislev, you're down with Nissen, and Papa. Around then Wednesday before. What?
Always on a Wednesday.
The Wednesday before those days. Discussion. So that's some miscellaneous. So there's the limited discussions that we have. I think that really what represents what my father stood for is for himself, for his children, and what he tried for those people that are around him, the importance of being the Mekusha to the Rebbe and to bring Nachas to the Rebbe. And I think that's the message that we can take with ourselves, that we live with it, of our importance, of the way we connect to the Rebbe by learning the shiur that he is told us, doing the mitzvahim there, doing the going out there, to try to be the mekarev, do that, and I think that's how we go and fulfill our shlichus. Yeah, you're supposed to be right.
So during Shiva, someone came in. He wasn't dressed like a chassid. He says, I got to tell you guys a story. He says, I remember years ago, it was a long way afraid. What's his guy's name?
I have him on video. Yeah.
His name is Brendel. Yeah, he said, there's a long way parade. There's a beautiful parade.
Yeah, Brendel Kingston Avenue.
Brendel Kingston Avenue. Okay,
yeah. He's
going to I got to tell you the story. Says, there was a beautiful long way parade. Yeah. He didn't want to tell you. He said, I just came in to tell you the story. He said that there's a long way parade. It's a beautiful long way parade. And at the end of the parade, I turn to your father and tell your father, I'm sure that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai will have a lot of nachas. Your father said, forget Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Rebbe is going to have a lot of nachas. So the point I'm mentioning the story is that everyone knows that my father lived his whole life to make life easier for the Rebbe and to make the Rebbe proud and to give the Rebbe nachas ruach. And whenever I would meet him, even at the hospital, at the end, we'd ask what's going on with Chabad, how other people. So I think for all of us is that we live every day. How do we bring nachas to the Rebbe? We live every day. What are we going to do that's going to bring the Rebbe happiness, dashness? What's going to bring the Rebbe happiness, berunius? That's living like a person. My father always would say, and that's tank. What is it? Tank 21.
My father's tank is.
I remember as a kid actually going to the tank and passing 749, waking guys up and come on down. Would be Fridays, because you up all night. Rama. So, I mean, I think that's the Chayim that live, all the mices and everything is, like you said, my father really best, never like we talk about everything, want to talk about himself. I think the greatest Chayim live is that we live on a daily basis, being the cushion to ever, and living our life, what will it ever want, and how will we make it ever happy, make it ever proud.
This pretty Dell, like, I went to a story that he had a baby. He was sitting, I'm not sure if he was sitting in jail. But
Now, you want to have a final word?
And Friday night, they announced after the doctor, he announced that he had a baby.
Hey, man, that show that.
The Rebbe said, but enough on Zachar, and the Rebbe waited till they announced on Zachar. I think that he was like, that he said jail.
I think he said what always started on Sukkot. He would say that's when we thought the preparation of the darkness, and when we started saying L'chaim on Sukkot. And we always said L'chaim's on the Shakas the darkness. I'm not sure what that means, but that's only for me. L'chaim's on the Shakas. What happened to Shakas? Listen, if somebody missed the Bagrangan, Barry Scheimer or something, he was making with his hand and afterwards. Why he missed it off, listen, and why he missed pop up, and all of that. But again, to try to connect every day and every moment with whatever, to your shlichus, to your personal life, and I think that's what these messages.
Happy.
So first of all, there was a story that I think we skipped tonight, was that when he was a chassan, the Seder then was that if the Kala was in Harlig, in Brooklyn, I'm not sure exactly, then the chassan would go out of town. I think he would usually go to Montreal. But my grandfathers didn't want to leave 70, especially not for such a reason.
Wasn't the game, eh?
So I think his father asked the Rebbe where he should go. If he should go to Newark, go to Montreal, and the Rebbe said something along the lines that he could stay until 70.
So the East can Meyer.
That's what I think. I don't want to quote it.
What do you think? Off the record, what do you think?
The word that he said, this can Meyer can oblige. My grandfather.
Yeah. That's one thing. Another thing is that I remember him telling me once. I think really my grandmother was saying when he was getting it. Yeah, that in the summer when the cars used when the car people used to go to the country, when you go up an avenue and they make the right up to things about left, make a left. So he used to stand with her the afternoon, and whenever he saw the people at station wagon, he would tell them to roll down the window and says, "Make sure you come back for Chapov. Make sure you come back for Chapov from the country." But that's really what was a bishman.
I call them the Scottish police.
Yeah, very good. And I think more that what he accomplished by being the Scottish police, like Yossi said, was by actually living it and doing and so. And I was saying before, but I'm taking the risk. My point was that it was so important to him. Again, Nefesh, but he was the Meiser Nefesh. He said, you might get now. For like when he brought the kids to show, to daven the mincha. He said they made noise, and people used to tell him it's not nice. It's the Rebbe's davening. Why are you having kids? Not a playground. Why are you bringing kids to show? And he didn't know. He did the right thing or the wrong thing. It was masher.
It might have disturbed the Rebbe's.
I know once once complained. A few times. I was touching him, and I was sitting for hours at the rain.
So, but I'm saying, but all this time, it wasn't like no one was inviting him in, saying, "Here, come to." And the little was exception, but even then, he says he thinks because he used to stand by the Rebbe and watch that all this time. So people were assigned to actually, the guy was something. He used to say, "Go," he used to make sure everyone was ready not to make the Rebbe wait extra. He thinks that's what he was doing the years before that everyone was doing. So the point is that it was very again that he took the risk and he pushed. And I think for us also, that we have to learn from that, not to take it's easy to even push it, but we have to learn when it's hard to have that the string it line and to push it, even go when it's hard.
Whoever loved it, I'd be loved, and if they didn't, those ladies.
We posted online a video. I did an interview with my father about 10, 11 years ago. I just happened to do it. I just posted, so you have it here talking himself about the story, so you can see it's posted online. One of his other favorite day going was Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. One thing we didn't mention, a couple of things, and then we'll get to that. My father was a collector, and he collected very famous, first of all, the Tanyas, everyone knows that he collected the Tanyas, a tremendous collection of Tanyas. Those are things in the house. Also,
That's our furniture.
yeah, that's the walls of my house is not, there's no walls, it's Tanya, my parents' home. Then letters from the devil. Today it's easy, it's the English. He told me, hours, hundreds of hours that he collected of English index cards. We're slowly going through it. Index card letters. Now most of it is printed, but we're talking about the Chavs, the Lamas. He would collect these letters, type them up over there, make copies of them. We would have a collection. The answers. It's always mentioned that my father would send them. He has a collection of these answers. I post some of them, but I know most of them are already public. But remember, he had a love for the Rebbe, so even though anything that was from the Rebbe, whether it was a tshuva, or it was the letters from the Igris, whether it's the Tanyas now, or the collection of pictures, he had a tremendous collection
pictures now is very easy. Right? Then we're talking about the pictures. Yeah, he gave him out to.
We found pictures of him with the Rebbe.
Yeah. Way back, really a big collection. So anything that has to do with them, we have. The Yomanim, of course, the
court case.
the court case we have the full court case. Oh, yeah.
He went and made a copy.
Yeah, we had, right, we went to court and made copies of everything had to do with it.
The guy,
They used to meet in the bathroom, they make the exchange for the, I think even though you shouldn't say this. I do want to say just, you're talking about, I think also everything that I've liked, he convinced them, kind of like that. Whatever ate certain things, that said he would do that, whatever. And we spoke before about my father was involved in the camp. He was involved in Meyer at the beginning. The reason he was involved in Meyer from the beginning, and he was there, be away from the Rebbe, right? Is because the Rebbe had a passion for camp and spoke about the importance of camp. And so because again, the Rebbe wanted them to open a camp and the importance of kids being in a camp 24 hours, how much they can grow in Yiddishkeit. Because the Rebbe asked about it and did whatever he did with that, he took that as a point, and therefore he went to camp, was involved in camp, and encouraged kids to go to camp, and it's important to send any kids to camp. Again, everything that Rebbe was passionate about, so they never had something that he wanted that should be done. My father went and it became his passion to bring that to fruition.
We didn't want to talk now, we're fighting a little like, yeah.
Once you get
Another thing that
With the court rabbi.
another thing that was not unique to him, but he was from those that he lived in, worked the whole year for it, was he always wanted to give the Rebbe a present. So the Rebbe always wanted to, about anything from Siddur, my mother, or something old Sfarim, and he would go in the summer. I know when he was a Meyer, he said he was going around looking for old Sfarim, which a lot of the Bachim don't want to for doing it, but he would go doing it a few times. He gave the Rebbe nice things that Rebbe didn't have, but things that he gave to the Rebbe. One thing is I saw maybe in one of the videos. He said they gave the Rebbe a second print, a print of the second print Tanya, and he gave the Rebbe one of those.
He gave once during Yechidus, he went for his birthday.
His birthday, he tried to give
whenever he went to his birthday, try to give the Rebbe a present.
And
See this one, like once he gave him a tiny, the Rebbe didn't have.
yeah, and then one time found letters of the Fidik Rebbe, and the Rebbe actually, on the camera, the Rebbe told him something in Chiddush. I was very surprised. The Rebbe spoke to him. Actually, that was very surprised, like in a positive, like interested. I spoke to him about these letters in a very interested way. There was another time that he didn't give it in the Chiddush. He gave it like we're going to give the Rebbe, and we're going to print the Imam 15 years ago, and we see he was always trying to give him these things. But
that was a copy of Mammon, like of Mammon that he gave to him.
And that's one thing. Yeah. But he worked very hard on that. She mentioned reflecting. Another thing is that I think is worth mentioning about him was that he loved Shloshim. He loved to come to 70 and see. He himself would drink a lot, but he loved to see when the Bachim was saying L'chaim, and more bottles, the more L'chaim, the more dancing, the more the better. He probably got some hot dogs, watching it, seeing it, watching it. We still talk about it for years.
First time.
But in general, he besides Chedesh Kislev and Yerav Nissen, which was he worked the whole year for it, but he even a simple Shabbos for him to come into Mincha, to see Chedesh Farbrengen, he was so excited, especially when you see the Bachrim, then he really lived for it. To such an extent that he has tapes that it's Yisrael, that the guy got shipped over there, and he found, and they didn't tell him right away. He found out from someone else who happened to tell him. He got spoken like, how can you include me in the least the Chazara of Farbrengen? This guy, This guy, they call the guy out. He loved it. He loved the Fabrengens, and a big cock for him. And even when we had last years, in the last few years, the Fabrengens, the closet, he loved to come to Mencha, to see with Makavedim, with things with Chayim, and he gave a lot of nachas, even though it was upside down. But he got a lot of nachas for that. And
No?
Oh, yeah. I thought you had to close.
Continue.
Oh, I thought you were at the
Close it.
give us time. Don't you used to sell this stuff? You still do, huh? I remember.
Another thing.